Before we get started tonight, one bit of information. I want to welcome Rebecca Borer, who is our new planning board secretary slash assistant, taking our minutes and filing things with the city clerk. So Rebecca, I cannot tell you how pleased I am to have you here. Thank you very much. So she will be taking on the duties that Linda normally would take care of for us while Linda's out on extended medical leave. So Rebecca, you are a huge relief to me. So welcome. One other super quick thing before we launch into Mr. Weinert's chickens. Hi, Adam. It's good to see you. Verizon, at our request, at the request of the planning board last month, has agreed to re-photograph the all the sightline pictures because the leaves were not off the trees when they originally took those photographs. So Scott Olson, the Verizon attorney, asked for an extension to wait until December. And because there is no new information being presented at this meeting, I would like a motion well, I guess I have to open the public hearing for Verizon only to get a motion and a second to extend this until December and just officially. So may I have a motion to give Verizon an extension until our December meeting, please?
We have a motion. I give you a motion to extend Verizon until December meeting.
To continue the public hearing until the December meeting.
Public hearing in December. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we will close the public hearing on Verizon. Now, we will open our public hearing on 42 Allen Street. This also needs a bit of explanation. Board, as you'll recall last month, we reviewed Adam's application for a conditional use permit to keep 5 hens for his personal use. What I did not realize is that conditional use applications require public hearings, and we had waived that public hearing requirement, so in error. So Adam very kindly allowed us to rescind that approval so that we can open a public hearing tonight. And so I would like to make a resolution rescinding the public approval from our October meeting so that we can hold the hearing, open a public hearing tonight. May I have a motion to that effect, please? Thank you, Clark. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Larry. Any conversation, any discussion, questions? Okay, motion to approve. We have a motion, we have a second. Vote to approve, please. Say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Fantastic. Adam, thank you so much for being so collegial and kind to me when I made that mistake. We have noticed this public hearing in the newspaper. So we're all set, and Adam is aware of my error. So now I would like a motion to open the public hearing on 42nd and open it to public comments, please. Anyone here?
I move we open to public comments.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Laura, thank you. All right, the public hearing on 42 Allen Street, those 5 adorable hens that we're going to meet soon and get an egg from soon, is open. Does anyone have any comments on this application? All right, hearing none.
Thanks for everybody.
I see a hand raised.
Jane Trombley.
Yeah, I do. Hi, everyone, and hi, neighbor Adam. Betsy, may I direct this question to Adam?
Preferably direct it to me.
Oh, okay. I have a question. It's out of curiosity. I understand that hens tend to be a little, well, not particularly robust in their egg production in the winter. And I'm just wondering if that has been taken into consideration. I think it has no bearing on whether eggs or whether the hens are allowed, but I'm just wondering, how do you manage hens over the winter if they're not, well, not if they're not productive, but as they're not as productive? Do you kind of just wait till spring when they're laying more?
Well, that's really kind of an animal husbandry question, Jane. And I'm not really actually sure that that's within the purview of the planning board to consider.
Okay, okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, call him. Adam would be happy to, or knock on his door.
I'm wandering off the planning board reservation, out of the scope of the coop, I think.
Yeah,
I withdraw my question. I see it's frivolous. I didn't mean it to be.
okay. No, that's totally fine. This is a very, we're fine.
Sorry.
That's okay. So does anyone else have any questions about Adam's plan? Hearing none, I would like to have a motion to close the public hearing. And I do have a resolution that I believe I sent around to all of you. Did I? Remind me, did I send you all a resolution on
I
this?
don't know that I saw a resolution.
Okay, and what I can do is I can screen share.
Did we close the public meeting, Bets?
Yeah.
Vote to do that?
Yeah, we need to close the public hearing. Thank you, Laura. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
John, do I have a second?
Second.
Laura, great. Okay, so the public hearing on 42 Allen Street, the chickens is closed. I will screen share this resolution.
Screen share. Do that. Oop. Mm-mm,
And my screen, can you all see my screen?
mm-mm.
I'm not sure are you all looking at my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So you see this resolution for a conditional use permit approval for 42 Allen Street, has the tax ID number. I don't think I need to read every single word to you, but in essence, it says, whereas the applicant Adam Weinert has applied to the Hudson Planning Board for a conditional use permit pursuant to 7017 and 7018 of the City of Hudson Code for the keeping of chickens on the property located at 42 Allen Street, comprising tax block, blah, blah, blah. So it says that we considered the application at our meeting on October 13th, that a duly noticed public hearing was held tonight. Everybody had the opportunity to speak. This is a type 2 action under seeker. It requires our approval pursuant to 32524 of the city code. We've reviewed the criteria for conditional use permits. And now therefore be it resolved that the Hudson Planning Board hereby grants conditional use permit approval as presented on the site plan and finds that the project satisfies conditional use criteria set forth in 32534. The conditions are listed here, that the keeping of chickens shall be in conformance with the site plan that Adam submitted to us, that he may keep no more than 5 female chickens. Roosters are not permitted. Chickens will be kept as pets for personal use only. They're not to be sold or to be bred or for commercial purposes. They must be provided with adequate food, water, space, and love, and premises. They'll be kept only in conditions that limit odors, waste, and noise so they don't attract vermin. They will not be permitted to run at large off Adam's property unless they can't go off the property unless they're crated. They shall not be used or trained for fighting, and all stored food must be kept either indoors or in a covered steel container. And then the manure and other waste must be stored and removed as per the plan. So Adam, if you are good with all of those conditions, we are, I think. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Move to approve the resolution.
Was that you, Steve?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And a second?
I second.
Thank you, Teresa. All in favor? Do I need to do a roll call vote on this? I don't think so. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Adam, we're done. Thank you so much. I will now get you the signed and dated forms and everything that you and I have to go through. We will make a date to meet. Okay. Thank you again so much, my friend, for being patient with me. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Yep. Thank you. All right. We are back. We now We have a public hearing at 259 Union Street, a conditional use permit application from Wild Hudson to house a business office for community-oriented business. Do I have a motion to approve to open a public hearing?
I'll
So
move.
moved.
John, do I have a second?
Second.
Larry, okay. Crystal, you are here. I'm not sure who else from the team is here, but, oh, there's Hillary.
Hillary is here, yes.
Okay, great. So Crystal, will you be walking us through this?
Hillary's going to walk you through this today. I am here in case any questions come up on the legal side.
Okay, great. Hi, Hillary.
Hi, Betsy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Did you want me to do a presentation or pick up where we were from the last meeting? How would you like
Well,
me to?
I think this is because this is our opening of our public hearing, Hillary. There might be people here that aren't familiar with your presentation. So if you could walk us through it quickly,
Yep.
you can screen share, whatever you'd like to do.
No problem. I'll just share my screen. Zoom. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Sure can.
Thumbs up. Okay, great. So welcome to Wild Hudson. What the space will stand for is kind of a community space and workspace for the Hudson community, built on experience, collaboration, advice, and friendship. And this is a lot of text here, but I'll get to the bottom of it. But our tagline is a community workspace where creativity, passion, and productivity can go wild. And we want people to be able to come to this space, to be able to work, to be able to meet, to be able to lead conversations, to also hold educational talks. This will also be somewhat that's very inclusive of the community. Making sure that all of the presentations will be open to everybody, and kind of goes and leads into our tagline, open heart and open mind. Already covered, but I'll get to the nitty gritty. So we kind of envision Wild to contribute to Hudson community in various ways. As a workspace, we'll be providing Wi-Fi, a cafe, business services, as well as meeting rooms. And as a community space, we'll also provide a gallery for local makers, a seasonal outdoor market, which hopefully some of you all got to experience last weekend, as well as some family-friendly activities, as well as events furthering education and networking. Here I kind of cover the general hours, which we're going to be mostly through, kind of the working hours and daylight hours on the weekends only. And if we do any activations outside, if you're familiar with the space, we have the parking area next to the building that will also adhere to those hours. So just to get a little bit more into some of the segments of the business, the work and meet space is a place to be productive, meet a friend, colleague, grab a coffee or two, brainstorm with your virtual team, as we all are doing right now. Community space, a place to meet, collaborate, and learn, open to local organizations for meeting or a maker demonstration or tutorial. I know that I want to take a ceramics class, so I'm sure all of you would want to as well. We'll also have consistent and scheduled in-person, when COVID clear, and virtual programming, hoping to enlighten and further education. A collectibles gallery, a space to display and sell local makers. The maker market, which we'll have in the parking area next to the building. And then some kind of one-off multi-use of the outdoor space, outdoor panel discussions during daylight hours, maybe hosting an animal adoption. These are just ideas, these are not solidified, but we want to make sure that we put everything out there in case we have some strike of genius. This is the space that everybody's familiar with. This is the front outdoor space. And then we also have the parking space, and we might have driven by. We do have our temporary branding up there already. And then we just have some values. This is Lucas and myself. We are actually kind of experts at building communities in our own businesses, mine through Brand Assembly, as well as Lucas through Everyman. So this is something that we're really well versed in doing. And so we hope to see you there. And then Betsy, I thought I'd show the site plan as asked last time, if that's okay.
Yes, please, Hillary. That would be great.
So let me just stop sharing so I don't scare everybody with all of my tabs. And reshare. Okay, can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the general layout of the inside and the outside. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the layout of OR if they had gone there when it was open. But in this side area is where they had their gallery. Here you'll see we'll also have our kind of like antique and collectible gallery of local makers. And in the back room where they had their storage unit, that will be used as a conference and meeting room. Then we just have, general layout of meeting areas. The bar will remain. We're not making any changes to the physical space. They did a great job, so there's no reason to upgrade it. And then I know that we did have questions for the outside. We do not have any plans to make any substantial changes, except for some more aesthetically pleasing options where we might have some planters at the front of the parking lot that is aligning 3rd Street. And here's kind of a sample tent placement for a maker market if we do that in the warmer months. But just to reiterate that we are not making any additional changes to lighting. There's already twinkle lights and existing kind of canister lights above doors. And if we do an outdoor event, anything would be during daylight hours, unless it was an extraneous circumstance where we'd only use some twinkle lights. So that's the site plan.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Hillary.
You're welcome.
So members of the public, do any of you have questions, comments? Yes, Tom.
Just one quick question. Have you, I noticed some not sort of bollards went up for the parking lot, so there will be no parking in that space, even though you keep calling it a parking lot?
No.
Correct. The Galvin Foundation is our landlords. Actually, it's in our lease that we cannot use that space as a parking lot.
Right, I suspect as much. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter, you had a question?
I have a question. I also have a comment. I think when there's a public hearing, it's just a best practice for the application to be published on the city website, and this application hasn't been.
I am very sorry about that, and that is really strictly a matter of, we have not had anybody to do that for months. Our secretary has been on an extended medical leave. I introduced Rebecca Borer, who's going to be helping with all of that now, but I absolutely agree with you, Peter, and under normal circumstances,
Right.
that would all be up, and I am sorry.
And Madam Chair, I know you make every effort for transparency and good communication, so it's not a criticism, it's just a comment.
It is a good.
I was looking earlier to try to answer some questions, and I couldn't find it.
Okay.
I also just wanted to ask if there are any plans to have a liquor license for the cafe, and if the hours in the application are fixed or are flexible.
So we have no plans to have a liquor license or serve alcohol. So that is a definitive answer there. And then the hours, unless it was, again, an extraneous circumstance where we had, a talk that would maybe extend to 8 p.m. as opposed to 7 p.m. For people to join after working hours. That would be the only time that those hours would be extended.
Great.
There was also a mention of perhaps, Peter, they might have something in conjunction with an event like Winter Walk. And in an instance like that, certainly they would want to keep themselves open after hours, but that is, and it's indicated in the application, it would be limited.
Okay.
If
In that case, I'd just like to add that I would give the applicant my wholehearted support. I think it's a wonderful application. I think it's a great use of the space and beautifully thought out. And also thank you for the event you did in Shared Streets a couple of weeks ago. And, I wish you all success.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Peter.
Laura, did you have a question?
I was just going to say that if the applicant feels that there are times when an event might go to 8, would the applicant consider just moving your hours to 8 o'clock as opposed to 7, when actually that's when you should be ending? Why not just move it to 8 o'clock? Is that something that you would consider or should consider?
May I just sort of amend your question a tiny bit, Laura, and ask Crystal? Crystal, in this case, I know that with Winter Walk, stores open after their normal closes all the time, and they don't have to get permission to do that. It's just sort of understood that they would do that. So if you,
I wasn't so much talking about Winter Walk, which is that special occasion, Betsy, but rather they had said if there was a lecture that ran over or something, and ending at 7 is nice. But I personally have no trouble if they instead just ended at 8. In other words, if it's on our application to end at 7 and then they go to 8, I just don't want them to get in trouble.
I see.
Why not just extend it to 8?
Those were just our normal business operating hours. So those are just the standard hours, but if we did a once a month talk, those could go past those normal business hours, but call it 28 out of 30 days in a month, it would be normal business hours.
Yeah, I think the point is that, there's no intention of operating a bar or something that's going to be open late into the evening. So we want to be cognizant of that. If we think that it's appropriate to, establish the hours at say 9 p.m. close for standard, it's really what's acceptable for that space. But we would just want to make it clear that we don't have any intention of operating late into the evening whatsoever. It's really what's acceptable.
Then keep it at 7, guys. I was just throwing it out there. I think that's fine.
Any other comments or questions from the board or the public?
I'm still not totally clear on how the outdoor space is going to get used and whether. Look, I love a world in which people gather with their animals and there are swap meets and flea markets and face painting for little kids, and everyone brings their own, uniqueness to the forefront and shares and revels in each other's wonderfulness. It all sounds great, but what if it becomes, I don't know, a noisy, chaotic mess? And how. I don't want us to get in a situation where the open-endedness of the outdoor space is, in a way, an invitation to, I hate to say it, a kind of public nuisance. I guess we have, I'm answering my question, I suppose, but I guess we have things in our code that would allow us to manage that in terms of public noise. I don't know. I just still remain a little bit confused about the outdoor space, I guess. Can you perhaps articulate a little more how you see that and how you manage to regulate that and how it might not spill over onto the neighbors or onto the sidewalk or onto the street or, yeah. Can you maybe just articulate a little more what you see happening on that corner?
Yeah, no, of course. So, some of those were just suggestions. We only intend in the immediate future for that to act as it had in the last weekend of Shared Streets Halloween weekend. So it would be just like a market like you have at the farmer's market on the weekend. So, nothing past a Saturday, Sunday. If anything, there might be a talk outside if it was nice weather, but the main purpose would be for the recurring market.
And the outdoor space ends at 7 in theory too, right?
Correct.
Yeah, space ends at 7.
And no additional lighting.
Can you remind me, how is it worded in the application? Like, what are we approving if we say, yes, let's do this? What is the language that we're approving?
So you're approving a special exception permit, the primary use for which would be their business office, and that's this business of community. There are some secondary and customary accessory uses to this primary use. That's the gallery, the cafe, the seasonal outdoor market, seasonal indoor and outdoor family-friendly events, and events furthering education and network.
What was that last one? Events furthering
Events
what?
furthering education and network.
Networking.
And yeah, so those are awfully open-ended. And I just, what are events that advance family networking?
So I can use an example from my other business, Brand Assembly. So I operate a co-working space in Los Angeles and also in New York City. And so some events that we do are talks that are about bookkeeping, fun things like that, but also, wellness, how to, kind of de-stress. So things that are talks that are of interest to the community. And so those would be more of those educational talks.
Outside?
Inside, only on a rare occasion. If it was like gorgeous out like we did this weekend, maybe we would have a chat during the day, but most likely they would take place inside.
I mean, I just, again, it's so open-ended. Do you imagine like outdoor yoga classes or Tai Chi? I mean, what?
Well, I guess my question would be, what kind of events would you not want to see that space used for?
Well, I don't think that's our role, right?
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to understand from a just to frame the conversation, like, there's no intention of having a rock concert in that space whatsoever.
Right.
There's I think the last weekend of Shared Streets was a great example of how to make use of that space in a way that benefited the community and obviously leveraged an open space similar to like the farmers market within a constrained time frame, i.e. the weekends and a period of time. And from a wild perspective, like, we don't have any interest in engaging in sort of activities that are nuisances, if you will, to use your language. But would certainly want to clarify, if there's any clarifying questions that you have, would be more than willing to help with that.
Well, maybe to follow up on Larry's question too. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to wrap my mind around is when would you need to come back before the planning board for a certain kind of event? Like you had mentioned, like ice skating as a possible activity to use the open space for. So, I think that one of the great things about the application is that you have all of these creative ideas for what to do with that space. And I think we're just trying to wrap our mind around what are we approving and when would you have to come back to get our approval to do something that's kind of out of step with what we're approving?
So, Stephen, as it stands, you would be approving a very open-ended use of the space for any kind of events. There's no limitations on how many you could have per weekend or how many you could have per month. So, if the board is concerned, we may want to talk about, size limit on number of people or something else. And then when we meet a threshold, they may have to come back in to amend their permit.
Well, that was going to be my question is what is the allowed amount, amount of people that are allowed in the building and outside the building? Do you know that, Crystal?
I don't know what the occupancy loads are.
That should be in the application, shouldn't it? I mean,
Well, they have the square feet, but occupancy loads are a
It depends
function
upon
of the
use.
building.
It
Yeah,
depends on if
building
you have
code.
tables, if everybody's sitting in chairs, if everybody's standing. So there are different criteria that's used to determine an occupancy load for a space.
Right, I'm an architect, I know that. So what are you proposing?
We haven't proposed anything.
Well, like how many chairs in the cafe? How many tables, seats outside?
So I have the site plan of recommended seating in the inside that was passed to the planning board. And then on the outside seating, talks or panels would be no more than probably 30 people.
It looks like the outdoor space right now is 3,690 square feet. So I don't know how many people can fit in that, but Larry, you may have an idea.
But again, I mean, this should be in that, I mean, did this go through Craig?
Yes, Craig issued a letter.
So we should have the occupancy load on the plan they submitted to Craig.
No, Craig issued a zoning letter, and the zoning letter says that the use is permitted. And that's the extent of his letter. Attached is a special exception use for a business office space in the R4 district. It needs planning board approval. So he did a zoning review. He hasn't done a building review yet.
I think what we're getting, where we're going here is that we would like to know what the occupancy would be indoors and outdoors with and without tables. Larry, is that correct?
Yeah, that would be really helpful. I mean, I'd have to look it up, but I think the square footage requirement for our assembly space is 15 square foot per person, which would be 240 people out in that space. This is where I start to wonder, like, what, that might become, I don't know. Look, I love what you're doing. I think we should find a way to get you to move forward. It's just so open-ended that it's really hard to know what we're going to be voting on.
I'd just like to interject that most what we're talking about here could be no more than potentially 30 occurrences within a year that we're somewhat forgetting the foundation of what the business is, which is the day-to-day of people coming in and being able to work and meet and have meetings, have their calls, and that's really the kind of foundation of the business. And the outdoor use is going to be kind of like an accessory to the actual business.
I think that look, if I'm putting on a play, if my building's been approved, then the board would not be saying what plays you're going to be doing, but rather they're going to be asking me what's your occupancy, what's allowed. So we're going to. I feel very confident that you're not going to do something that is in some way untoward. But I think that if you could answer the occupancy issue, then I would feel, satisfied. I'm not sure about Larry, but I think I think we just would like to grasp a little bit of more knowledge about your occupancy.
Can I ask, is the question of occupancy one more of safety concern, or is it more about potential disturbances in the neighborhood?
I think both.
Well, I would say in terms of the occupancy load, it seems to be more of a code issue than a planning board issue, quite frankly.
I think they're talking about impacts. It's an impact review. They just want to understand what the potential impacts are and if any mitigation is needed.
In the addendum to their application, it says employees at one time no more than 3, shoppers at one time anticipate 8 to gallery and 20 to outdoor events. Does that sound correct still, actually, based on the experience you had last weekend?
Well, that's, that's movable people, right? So, at one time, the stagnant people will be, no more than 20, because as you can see, the site plan, as far as the tents, I can't fit more than that. So any other additional would be, kind of like movable people that are going in and out of the space, not there at one time.
So board, would you feel comfortable if we put a condition on this that said that, I think the indoor space is the indoor space. They've already shown us what their site plan is and what their occupancy is for that. But what if we limited outdoor on the number of people there at any given time to 75 or 50, or I don't know what you're comfortable with.
Well, you would need a basis to come up with your number.
Okay. So it can't just be a random arbitrary number. We need to base it on something concrete.
Yes.
I think Craig would probably be helpful with that. We did have a recent application where in his submittal to us, it indicated the occupancy or the number of people who were going to use the space. So maybe what we can do is check with Craig to see if there's some way that he can offer that to us. I think some of it, the indoor leads to fire code issues and all those other things. Outdoor, not so much. But, Craig may be helpful in maybe bumping us in the right direction on that.
Even though it might be a code issue, Crystal, I think we're just used to people, applications, including the occupancy, even indoors and outdoors, just so that we can wrap our minds around the project. I agree that it sounds like a great project. It just a teensy bit mysterious, which I don't think the applicants really want us to feel a little bit mysterious about this. But
perhaps then you could include in your application that that's something that you're looking for. That would be helpful.
Well, again, this is ordinarily you would do this. The applicant does this. The applicant hires someone to assess the code, to assess the use group that the project falls into, does a calculation, submits it to Craig. We get that, we get that site plan with that information on there, and it's not actually incumbent upon us or even Craig. All Craig would do is confirm or recommend a revision to the information submitted by the applicant. Right?
I understand that. I think Craig does that primarily when somebody's making changes to a property. I mean, so we have a property, we hadn't had to hire an engineer. Everything is existing at the property right now. So we're not making changes to the structure. We're not making changes to the asphalt paved area that's next to the structure. We're not making changes to the interior layout. I mean, this is really just sort of utilizing the space that's there.
Was the outdoor space previously used for parking or for gathering?
It was used for parking.
Okay.
That is a change in use.
And there were tables out there too.
Correct. It's a change of use. Well,
okay, so then it's
tables weren't in the parking lot. They were in the
garden area
in front of the building that's sort of fenced in on the South 3rd Street facing portion of the building.
If I could chime in, it seems Crystal and Hillary and company that what we're struggling with is you're submitting a site plan to us that doesn't look like anything we're used to, and you're clearly coming to us for a reason. And we have a job to do, which is review and approve or not your site plan. And we don't have enough information right now to do that, as far as I can tell. And it seems pretty straightforward as finding occupancy per Larry's comments as a professional architect. And then I guess for me too, is a question of, again, every site plan, I'm thinking about recent examples. We did the back bar. They had a site plan for outside space, went through process, couple iterations, worked out great, really nice use, really very successful project. Same thing with the recent brew pub at the old auto body shop. Showed us outdoor space plans. We looked at it, thank you very much, and moved on. And we don't see that here, I guess.
I don't know if you saw the second page of the site plan that was submitted for outdoor use.
I didn't see.
You presented that tonight.
Yeah, I just presented it tonight. And also if everybody was in town last weekend for the market, it would not pretty much vary to how that setup was. So you have a in-life example.
Okay,
of the
great.
plan
And
as
then
well.
I guess, and thank you for that. I apologize for missing that, but it seems like there's a variety of uses you plan on using that space for. So, do those stay permanently? Do they move? Are there other configurations that we should be looking at?
Well, and again, the main use would be for the market. We wanted to put everything out there as possibilities, just again, to be the most forthcoming in front of the board if we got, had a strike of genius to do a pet adoption or something like that. But none of those are solidified plans. The only one that is going to be, one that is definite will be the maker market as exemplified from last weekend.
And I think we all support and encourage the flexibility, and maybe it's solved by giving us outdoor occupancy for all your events.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is we just need to come up with a clear capacity on the use of that space in terms of max number of individuals in the space at any one time, both with physical people that are there as well as people that are coming and going at any one time, because I think that would reduce any potential nuisance in the area. So either we can establish that number right now, or as we heard, we come up with some sort of calculation based on the size, which seems very reasonable. I'm certainly not an architect myself, so I wouldn't know how to do that, but.
And we're talking indoor and outdoor, with tables, without tables. I mean, I think ultimately, guys, that this helps you to do this. You know what I mean? I think it helps you. So good. And I don't know.
Another question for the board.
Yeah.
I just want to confirm that everyone is comfortable with the plans that were submitted. They are, they don't have all the data that you normally see in a site plan, such as, title, North Point, topo lines, all of your standard site plan, but because it's an existing site, you could waive those requirements. But I just want to make sure the applicant is clear on, what you're going to require for approval.
This is really similar to the first time that Back Bar came to us, where they had a sketch, and we highly appreciated the proposition, but simply needed a properly drawn site plan. And we had a special session, and we had that site plan, and it was a no-brainer, whatever, slam dunk. It was so easy. And I think a little bit of that is happening now, where a proper drawing, which has the use group and has the load and shows where the people might leave the outdoor space. I think that would really, really help the approval process here.
I would encourage the board to accept the site plan that was submitted. This is all existing. There's nothing that's being changed here.
You've already said that you are changing. You're changing the use on the outdoor space.
We're not changing the physical layout. We're not making any. We're not moving any walls. We're not changing anything to the physical building or the layout. We're not changing the lighting.
The use is changing, and if it's assembly space, there could be 240 people there, and we don't know what you're proposing.
We're not proposing an assembly space, though. That's another another use in the code.
Well, then what is the code use that you're proposing?
Again, it's a business office with accessory uses. We have the cafe. We have gallery for antiques and local makers, cafe, seasonal outdoor market, seasonal outdoor family-friendly activities, and events furthering education and networking.
So if I want to have a party there and I want to invite 250 people, okay, so that wouldn't happen. No party there.
No.
Again, this is not really our role, but I'm looking at it right now. IBC recommends for spaces with unconcentrated use of chairs and tables, such as a restaurant, 15 square feet on that floor of the building be dedicated to each occupant, which which means if you have outdoors 303,600 square feet, you have a legal right to have 240 people there. If that's what you're proposing, maybe we want 240 people out there, maybe we don't, but we don't know yet because you haven't told us. And again, I don't see, look, I want you to get to yes, right? I don't want to be difficult, but there's a procedure, an important part of the procedure that's missing here. And rather than, resisting or working with you, I would love it if you would actually just, say, okay, things are missing. You are changing the use. That does change the occupancy load. Changes it to what? We don't know because you haven't told us what the use type is and you haven't told us what the new capacity is going to be. And if you told us that, we probably would be fine right now, right? Instead, we're asking for something and there's a kind of resistance that makes us look like the bad guy. And I don't think, I want you to succeed, but it's hard for us to get you there in a dynamic in which our questions are treated as though we were stymieing your progress and resisting what is, I think, quite clearly a good faith community oriented project, right? Like, I don't think there's any sense that this is wrong for Hudson. It's just that the application is missing stuff and it's up to the applicant to complete that stuff. And when you have that, we can have a very civil, wonderful conversation. And if we want to, we can actually ask Victoria if there's a way for us to give a provisional or preliminary approval pending more information, or whether we need to wait on the application until we have that.
Would it be possible to consider the outdoor as a separate application to the physical space for the purpose of getting the business going?
Can't do it.
Especially as we're going into winter?
I believe that would be segmentation, wouldn't it, Victoria?
So it could be segmentation, but I think this is a type 2 action. So
Oh.
we don't need to worry about seeker segmentation. The applicant could ask to phase the plan, and then you could approve phase 1 indoor separately from phase 2, if you're comfortable doing that.
That makes good sense to me, actually, because that moves your primary business forward. I suspect you won't be doing a tremendous amount, and we would have to understand that we would be gentle on Winter Walk, right, Ford? But you all actually, you could come back to us with phase 2 as early as next month, right? You could get this information and we could discuss phase 2 at our December meeting and move you forward.
Yeah, that would be great, especially if we're hung up on the outside space. We obviously want that to be, as presentable and understandable as possible. But as we are approaching the winter months, would love to, move forward with the business as soon as possible.
So can you formally amend your application right now with phase 1 and phase 2? Just say it on the record. What?
Oh, sorry. I was like, type it or?
No, Crystal will do it.
Yes, so we'd like to amend the application into 2 phases. The first phase for the indoor portion of the business, the second phase for the outdoor portion of the business. An application, excuse me, for the application.
And Victoria, the items that were not completed in the application, is it possible that they complete those now verbally? You had said that there's some pieces that were missing.
Well, so, it's not going to be possible to complete those verbally. If your code, when you look at the requirements for site plan review, it requires things like showing all buildings within 100 feet, showing the topography lines of the site, showing landscaping. These are things that you can't just talk through tonight, but you could, I believe you can waive those requirements since you're only approving the indoor piece.
Okay.
At this point.
We did include an aerial that does show all the properties, and we did include in the application the only abutting property to this, to the subject property.
Yes, you did.
Could these elements that Victoria is talking about, Crystal, be included when you come for phase 2? Could you complete that part of the application? I know that it's grandfathered from what happened before with OR, but why not complete the application and make that part of your phase 2?
So board, if you're comfortable with this, I think well, we have to decide if we have enough information to close the public hearing tonight on phase 1, knowing that the applicants can come back to us next month with their phase 2 plans, so we can actually extend the public hearing for the phase 2 to our December meeting, so it doesn't have to be renoticed in the paper. What was this? But did this one require noticing? Maybe it didn't because it's like.
It did. You noticed this one.
Okay, all right. So we could keep phase 2 of the public hearing open. Can we not, Victoria?
You can.
Yeah. So are you all comfortable with that plan? I see a nod from Steve. Larry, you are?
Yep.
Laura?
Yep.
Everybody good?
And
Teresa? Okay, all right. So may I have a motion, please, to close the public hearing on Wild Phase 1? That would be our first step.
So moved.
Laura, thank you. In a second.
second.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then I need a second motion to extend the public hearing to our December meeting to review phase 2 of the site plan.
So moved.
Space. Thank you, John. Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that Steve? Okay, thank you. Any more conversation about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Clark, did you?
That's right. I just had a quick procedural question. Since we don't have all the material that we've asked for, do we need that first before we can?
Before phase 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to get that to us before our December meting. 10 days.
Would it be posted so the public could see it?
Now that we have Rebecca, we could get things up on the city website.
All right.
So are you asking what's their deadline for submission in order to be considered at the next meeting?
It's typically 10 days in advance of the meeting. Can you all accommodate that time frame?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Hillary, that would be.
I think Clark, are you also asking that for phase 1, we're waiving some of the standard site plan information for phase 1, understanding that the use is already established there and an unlikelihood occupancy and egress are already established. We don't have to have the same level of information on phase 1 that we hope to have for phase 2.
No, they're going to include that information in phase 2.
Right, but we're going to agree to proceed on phase 1 without that, which ordinarily you would never go ahead with phase 1 either, right? But we're going to assume that we're fine and proceed.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Victoria, are we within bounds here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second to extend the public hearing to December to review phase 2, and Hillary has agreed to get us all the documents that we need at least 10 days in advance so that we can post that to the city website and give the board 10 days to review. Okay?
Yeah.
May I have a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Clark, thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Larry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any no's? Okay, you all are good to go on phase 1, and yes, wait, what?
So I don't think you approved it yet, right?
Oh, did
we?
We haven't approved phase 1.
You've already closed the hearing.
I closed the hearing, sorry, I always forget this is a 2-step process.
So according to my view of the seeker regs, this is a type 2 seeker action, 617.5C18, reuse of a residential or commercial structure where commercial use is permitted. They're not adding anything, so this is just an existing structure. So I would say this is type 2. And then you could make a motion to approve phase 1.
Board, do I have a motion to approve phase 1? Laura, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any nays? Now, Hillary. I jumped the gun. I'm sorry. You all are free to proceed with phase one. We're very excited for you. I think it's just a wonderful project, and we will see you in December for all the last details for phase two for your outdoor work.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you, board.
Thank you, board.
Good thing it's winter, right?
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Crystal, I probably need to get together with you to stamp some plans, or what do I need to get you? For the
Yes.
phase one.
Yeah, let's plan on somehow connecting for that.
Okay.
I think the plans are gonna have to have a note on them
Yeah, I think so too.
that
Yes,
indicate
just
that
the
it's
indoor
only phase
phase.
one.
Yep.
Yep, we'll make sure that happens. Okay, all right.
Perfect. Thank you all.
Very much, and good luck with your business. We're excited for you and for us.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you there.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
All right, so I need a motion to close the public hearing portion of the meeting.
Oh,
So
Good.
moved.
a lot of movements.
I know. There's a
Yes,
lot.
I'll do that.
Do I have a second to close the public hearing portion of our meeting?
Second.
Steve, thank you. Everybody agreeing to move on, say aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any nays? Okay, we move on to old business. 175 South Front Street.
Mm.
Conditional use permit application and site plans from A. Colarusso and Son for road improvements and commercial dock operations. We are currently in a phase of reviewing seeker part 2 questions. There are 17 remaining questions on our list. I'm not going to speak for the board, but I'm kind of guessing that we probably won't get through them all tonight, but let's do the best we can to move forward. So because this is not a public hearing portion of the meeting, everybody is welcome to stay and listen, but we will be hearing just from our engineer, Ryan, our attorney, Victoria, and board members. So everyone else is welcome to listen in. So where we left off, Ryan, we had completed question 1.
That is correct.
Correct.
So we made it through question 1. And I believe after the meeting, there were assignments made to for the other 17 questions.
That's correct. So Teresa was assigned to become our resident expert with you and Victoria on geological features, which is the second question in seeker part 2. So Ryan, if you would be so kind as to walk us through that, and Teresa, please feel free to fill in any information that you think the board needs to know.
Sorry, can I ask one question about question 1 before we jump into?
Yes.
There was just a note about Ryan confirming with DEC about the coastal erosion hazard area.
Yes. Yeah, so I reached out to the coastal office on 3 occasions and by phone as well, and have not gotten a response. But in digging through DEC's website, there's reference to Long Island, some other areas, New York City. There's no reference to any Hudson River or Columbia County areas within the coastal erosion hazard area. I will reach out to them again. There's two folks there, and there's a coastal office out of headquarters in Albany, and have unfortunately been unable to. I think the office phone number is forwarding to a cell phone that doesn't get picked up. So I do not have a response to that, but it does. There's no information that indicates it is in a coastal erosion hazard area in any of the information online.
But Ryan, you'll stay on that for us, I'm sure, because that's a note.
I will.
Yeah. Okay. Steve, thank you for bringing that up. So on to question 2, Ryan, if you'd like to introduce it.
Yes, I'd be happy to. So question 2 deals with impacts to geological features. So these are, unusual or unique landforms. I mentioned to a board member, something like when we see like the Shawangunk Ridge in in new paltz or other cliffs, dunes, mineral fossils, caves, things along those lines. So I know, I believe this question was one that that Teresa had been working on, and I'm not sure if you, Betsy, would like me to go through each of the questions and pose those. I guess, how would you like to go through these?
I think, first of all, Teresa, did you think that this was something, in looking at the sub questions under question 2, that there you had concerns about?
No.
No. So, Ryan,
there was no information that I saw that indicated that there was specific landforms, fossils, minerals. I couldn't find anything. And one question I asked, one thing I said, if you say yes to this, do you need proof? And I asked you, Ryan, I asked Victoria, and you all said yes. So I didn't have proof.
So Ryan, my understanding is, and I've read through all of these questions, I haven't studied them all, but I've read through them all. And my understanding is that if there's a general feeling that right off the bat there is no impact, we don't have to go through the sub questions. Is that correct? That's according to the seeker handbook.
That's exactly.
That is correct. And, if there's any question, what I usually encourage is if there's any question, you can always either go through the sub questions first in answering yes or no, or answer yes and go through the sub questions. But yeah, that is correct. If you check no on this, there is no need to go through the sub parts of the question.
Though I do not have any comments about question 2, if a board member does have questions about number 2, would this be the time that we would bring it up? Or
Yep.
Okay.
So board, we can go through these sub questions if you'd like to. I sort of assigned these questions to board members so that we could kind of eliminate the ones that aren't really germane to this application. But if you would like Ryan to read through the sub questions, that is totally fine with me. Do we have a sense of how we want to proceed with this?
I think we should just read them out loud. Maybe Ryan can read them to us, and then we say, okay, great, we all agree, move on, go to the next one.
Okay.
A lot of these are going to be, I think, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask a question? Does everybody agree with me saying no for the impact, number 2? Does everybody on the board agree with that?
I do, Teresa, but I'm not sure that all board members have read the sub questions, the things that we're supposed to be considering. So I think that's the point, is Larry's asking that Ryan just quickly read through, and if anything sort of stuns somebody, or they're like, well, wait a minute, what about that one? Then we can discuss it. Okay, Ryan.
Okay, so under item 2, the sub questions, A, are to identify specific landforms that are included on the site of the proposed action, and that's an open-ended question. And you can see on these there are relevant part one questions that we can refer back to if there's questions. And item B is whether the proposed action may affect or is adjacent to a geological feature listed as a registered national natural landmark, and it is not. When you're looking through these, those are the 2 sub criteria. There's also an other impacts category. So if there's items that you think we might want to look at under the heading of geologic features, or as we go through, those can be addressed at that time as well and discussed.
The board, I think I'm comfortable with taking Teresa's advice that this is no impact, and we can move on to question 3. Does everyone agree?
I agree.
Okay, great. Okay, so the question 3 was assigned to Laura. It's regarding surface water. Ryan, would you walk us through that, please?
So question 3 is regarding surface water, and it asks the planning board to evaluate potential impacts to any wetlands, other surface water bodies. So those can include streams, rivers, ponds, lakes, any water that you can see at the grade surface. So some actions that would disturb land, such as removing vegetation, increasing or decreasing the size of a water body itself, creating water bodies, grading, clearing. All of these are actions that may cause some sort of impact, some level of impact to surface waters. So along those same lines is erosion, water withdrawal, discharge, and those are some of the areas that we look at in this sub-question here. So I'll, for the initial question is that the proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies such as streams, rivers, ponds, or lakes. And for that first question, I believe the answer was yes. Correct, Laura?
Thank you, Ryan. I just want to interject here that so in going through these, I used all the information from part 1, and I went through a lot of this with Ryan. And so, I just want to throw this out here. I feel that there are some, since, the answers to my questions at least are in part based on, if not all, in part, I should say, based on part 1, I feel that there were some things that are either missing or incorrect in part 1. I'd like to go through those. Is that possible?
Yes, I think that's what we're doing now.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take it from here, and then Ryan, jump in if I'm messing something up that you just. So in part 1, D2B, Caruso marked no. And Ryan had asked them to revise this to a yes. They declined to do that. I guess it was you, Pat, felt that no was correct. I believe that part 1, D2B, should be revised to say yes, and that the subsequent question should be answered. So, so that's one thing. In part 1, E1B, Caruso was asked to revise it because it's not an accurate representation of the site, and it has not yet been revised. In my thing, what I'm supposed to be looking at jumped all over the place, so I couldn't help it. Well, no, I think I picked this up somewhere else. Okay, I'm gonna skip that one.
Wait, Laura or Ryan, could one of you read the question that you're asking to be revised?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead. I've got it right in front of me here. So D1B that Laura references to, and we commented on in a letter last December. The question is, would the proposed action cause or result in alteration of, increase or decrease in size of, or encroachment into any existing wetland, water body, shoreline, beach, or adjacent area? So the EAF that was submitted, it was selected no. We had requested that, or we had commented that in our review of the project file and what is proposed for the dock parcel, that should be selected yes. But I know there was that was not altered after a resubmission was made.
Ryan, could you explain your rationale why you asked the applicant to change it and what the encroachment into the wetland is?
So the rationale behind the comment was regarding the triggering event that caused the need for the conditional use permit. So that was the replacement of an existing bulkhead in the same location, and the stabilization of the shoreline south of the primary bulkhead that was eroding. So that was causing an issue with erosion there, both from safety and but both of those actions occur or resulted in the alteration of an existing shoreline. So, again, looking to identify those potential impacts. That was what the rationale was for that comment.
And then want to read, it's easier if you do it, Ryan, because I have these other papers in front of me do you want to in turn read E1B?
Yeah, so E1B is a question regarding land use and cover types on the project site. So a comment we had earlier on the project as well. Currently, the EAF states that the site is broken down into 2 different cover types. So roads, buildings, other impervious areas at 5.5 acres, and non-vegetated areas such as bare rock, earth, or fill at 6.85 acres. So they're not proposing any changes there. Our comment and on this question was that there are portions of the site, while the site has been filled throughout its history, there are portions of the site that have been taken over by meadows, grass, some shrubs, and some low trees as well. So our comment in this regard was that that this table of cover types was not did not accurately portray the site. And I know that question came up as Laura went through the part 2 questions.
Okay. So then, and great, if Ryan, you could have part 1 available, that would be great. So part 1, E2H, streams should be changed to, where it refers to streams, it should be changed to Class A. You want to explain that?
Correct. So E2H is regarding surface waters and whether the site contains any wetlands or other water bodies. This again stemmed from our December 2019 comment letter. This was originally checked no. We had asked that be revised. When it was revised, the Hudson River was added as a regulated stream in the terminology of DEC and on the form, but the classification was misstated as Class C, and the Hudson River in this area is a Class A stream as regulated by DEC.
Okay. Then in part 1, D2F, this might be my opinion. I'm not sure if you agree with this, Ryan, but I believe it should be marked yes due to conveyor generator. It has air emissions.
So D2F asks, does the proposed action include or will it use on-site one or more sources of air emissions, including fuel combustion, waste incineration, or other processes or operations? The FEAF submitted by the applicant does select no. There are subsequent questions, but in looking at this and as we discussed earlier, the DEC's guidance for D2F is as follows. So D2F, again, regarding air emissions. So the answer yes to this question, if there are any air pollutants that will be generated or used in either construction or post-construction phases of the proposed project, consider both minor and major sources of air emission, including vehicles and equipment that use gas or diesel fuel. And then if you answer yes, there are subsequent questions. So in our discussion there, obviously the site contains, or the post-construction operations of the site will include the use of equipment to move materials around the site that are powered by either gas or diesel fuel, a generator, as well as the delivery trucks. So those were the sources there, having potential to be a source of air emissions.
Can I ask a question? Would that include tugboats that are waiting at the dock?
I suppose it would, yes.
Okay.
Okay. D2J, I think it was answered no, and I feel it should be answered yes.
And D2J refers to, will the proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels or generate substantial new demand for transportation facilities or services? And that was selected as no on the submitted EAF.
So what is the rationale for asking them to change that to a yes?
The amount of trucks?
So this is directly tied to existing, existing traffic levels and proposed traffic levels. The applicant has submitted, traffic counts and data for the prior years. So, that is something that the planning board can consider based on the information that was submitted.
I think a key item from that study, I looked at it, I guess, in some detail, and I believe this was flagged by one of our citizens as well. There was a comment on the average from 2015 to 2019. And first of all, the numbers go up significantly to dramatically over the 2015 to 2019. Quick calculation, almost threefold in that time frame. Obviously, it dropped down with COVID. But the one comment in the study essentially says that if you average I believe it's 2015 to 2019, that is approximately half of the maximum. Meaning, as I understand it, it could be doubled from that average level going forward based on the application. So I believe this has been talked about in great detail over the years, which is we're looking at the maximum amount that they're proposing. And again, per the study, the amount that they observed over 2015, I believe, to 2019 is half the max. So I believe there's significant potential traffic impacts given that simple statement from their own study. Not to mention that the truck counts have gone up again almost threefold from 2015 to 2019.
And those numbers that we summarized in our review of the traffic evaluation, I believe these are the numbers, Clark, that you're referring to. So the 2016 study did look at an average of 24 truckloads per day and a maximum of 142 truckloads per day. The updated study had an average of 57 truckloads per day, up from 24 in the 2016 study. And a maximum of 132 truckloads per day, which would be down from the 142. However, the applicant held the maximum from the 2016, the 142 trips per day, or the 142 truckloads per day, or 284 trips per day that we're familiar with for their analysis. They also presented an 85th percentile rate of 91 truckloads per day. That's kind of right in the middle there.
All right, then D2L, and that has to do with hours of operation, and in the form of the hours of operation are indicated as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the week. And I don't know if the applicant is saying that they're going to operate 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day of the week. I don't know what the last, what the last, what they told us. But
it was changed at one point to eliminate the weekends, I believe.
That's right. It's been changed, Victoria, before you several times. So I guess my question is, maybe Victoria or Ryan, should this right now, what they put is what they're, I guess, allowed in this form. Should it be what they're proposing?
Yes, you're evaluating the project as it has evolved. So, well, when they gave you part one, that was, as of a certain date, they've made certain project changes. So we should be noting the changes as you're doing, which is very helpful for the record. But you have to evaluate the project as currently proposed.
Right, but I was instructed to use this as a reference. So if it's not updated, it would be nice if it was updated. It needs to be updated even for the record.
Yep.
I think.
I agree.
Okay. Now, so, you know, I mistakenly went on to look at part 1, question 4. So I don't know, again, who has part 1, question 4, but I can.
Question 4 or part 1?
Part 1, question 4.
That's me, Laura, but please go on.
Okay. Okay, so part 1,
With part 2, question 4, right?
Yes. Part 2, question 4.
Well, wait a minute. No, this was.
We haven't gone through the sub questions for question 3 on part 2.
So now let's do part 2, question 3. So all of that was what I was supposed to reference. What I just did was supposed to reference in part 1, what we just talked about. Now we go to, you know, part 2, question 3, which is, you know, my question. So the impacts of surface water, the proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies. And I answered it yes. So again, anybody disagrees with me, that's fine. But do you want to read these off, Ryan?
Yeah, I can read through these, and then so the options under part 2 are either no or small impact may occur or moderate to large impact may occur. So as we go through these, understand that there are only 2 options there to check from. So no and small is in one category and moderate to large is in one category. So the proposed action may create a new water body, and the suggested answer, Laura, is?
No.
No to small impact, as there will be no new water bodies created by the dock operations. Item, and I will just keep going unless, but feel free to stop. Item B, the proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more than a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area of any body of water.
So the answer is no.
The proposed action may involve dredging more than 100 cubic yards of material from a wetland or water body.
And so the answer is no.
D, the proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater wetland or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body.
Now, I have that as a moderate to large because the project is in a flood zone.
And on the Hudson River.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, but you have to take into consideration everything in the application. And when DEC approved the replacement of the bulkhead, they said there was no impact. So you have to have a factual basis for changing that.
So, and Mr. Privatera, John, I appreciate the comment there, and that is you know, accurate. The DEC did review it. Part 2 of the form, and Victoria, if you have any comments here, part 2 of the form is for the identification of potential impacts. So this is where you, as the reviewing agency, are reviewing potential impacts. Part 3 of the form will further provide a breakdown of those impacts identified as moderate to large, where you will provide an explanation as to whether you, as the reviewing agency, determine that potential impact to be a significant adverse impact. So you may check one of these moderate to large, but because DEC and Army Corps reviewed these and the applicant made revisions to the plans for that shoreline work, you may find that just because it was a moderate, had the potential to be a moderate to large impact, that it does not, will not result in a significant adverse impact. And that is the role of.
That's correct.
Mr. Privatera.
There's nothing in those documents that says there's even a moderate impact. It still has to be accurate.
Okay, thank you. The board's gonna work through this. Ryan is correct. It's the board's job to work through this. But Mr. Privatera is correct in pointing out that the record does contain letters from the DEC indicating that the DEC determined that there was not going to be a significant impact from the shoreline stabilization and bulkhead repair. So that's in the record. But again, the exercise right now is identifying potential impacts.
I want to comment as well. We should keep in mind, and this has always been maybe a bit of point of confusion for maybe myself and my fellow board members, is that we're looking at operations, and the original application for EAF was very much geared towards that bulkhead repair. We're not just looking at the bulkhead repair here. And I know very much these questions are geared towards of that physical or a physical construction, but I know that there's, again, I'll just speak for myself, some confusion on trying to translate our job as reviewing the operations to this one very localized, small project relative to the construction project relative to the overall operations. Reviewing the operations is our charge. That's what we're doing here.
Okay, so the suggested response to item D was
Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm very sorry. Victoria, is it possible for the board to actually speak amongst ourselves and have the public and or the audience hold their questions or comments till the end of deliberations, in which case we invite comments?
Yes.
Can we mute them?
Well, I think we will just ask anyone who is not a member of this board, or Ryan or Victoria, please hold your comments.
It's just difficult to hold our place as it is, and I think it would be imperative for us to get through things. And then, I'm keenly interested in hearing what the applicant has to say, but I think it should come following our conversation.
I'll just comment too. It seems very disruptive and quite frankly disrespectful to our conversation here. So I believe there's procedure to follow, and now we're chatting among ourselves or discussing very serious issues, and we should not be interrupted.
Okay, so board, let's move on.
So we'll move on to item E. The proposed action may create turbidity in a water body, either from upland erosion runoff or by disturbing bottom sediments.
And I answered no.
I do have a question about that. What about turbidity in the river from the dock operation, the tugs and the barges?
So that is would be something that you could review under this question by disturbing bottom sediments. So that's something that there has not been any information submitted on as part of the record to my knowledge. That's something that could, that's a valid question to ask. That's something that we could, pose in the form of a question to the applicant and see if they have any information that they can provide. Additionally, we can take a look at the depths of the river through there and research that a bit if that is a question, area of concern.
I think it's important to know.
So I'm going to change that to moderate to large.
Well, so I think before you answer that, Ryan has offered to do a little bit of research first so that you can make an informed decision. So we may need to come back to this at the next meeting.
I'll keep that as a question mark.
I have a question, not a question, but an observation with the turbidity. Despite the depth, if there is, say, God forbid, an accident with a loader loading it onto the barges, that would increase the turbidity if it went into the river, despite how deep it is. So there is to my eye anyway, there is a possibility there.
So, and that is, John, that's a really good kind of comment to highlight a point of, we're looking at potential for impacts. And as we go through this, and as we go through part 3, one of the criteria that you will look at is likelihood. So, you'll look at the likelihood of something like that occurring in whether you're making a determination that it is a significant adverse impact or it has the potential to be an impact, but it doesn't rise to the level of significant in the planning board's review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've highlighted item E, and we will come back to that one. So we'll move on to item F. The proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water.
And all right. I think I made a mistake here. So that's one that I answered, that it would be moderate to large impact, and I can't figure out why.
So let me provide a little, guidance to steer the conversation. So water intake facilities can be located on really any surface water body. Usually it is either so this is something where the applicant would be drawing water off the river and that could be domestic water use, irrigation uses, industrial uses, and things along those lines. So that could be in the form of pumping or a dry hydrant or something along those lines. So based on the project record, I do not believe there are any proposed intakes for withdrawal of water from the Hudson River.
I mismarked that one, guys. So sorry. So that's note a little impact. Okay.
Okay. So we'll move on to item G. The proposed action may.
Hello, I have a question for that one. When we were there, they said that they washed the gravel at the river. So where do they get that water from?
So I'm getting to that.
You're getting to that one?
Yeah.
They might have, do they have municipal water at the site, Ryan?
They have indicated that they have municipal water at the site. The question specifically about where they get the water for the dust has, we can confirm that as well.
So does that mean G is a question mark for right now?
No, G isn't a no.
I gave G a no.
Oh no, I'm sorry. F is a no.
Sorry,
F is a no. So
yes, F is a no. And then the question about the water supply, we as Laura mentioned, I believe she's got another question further down that deals with that. Correct, Laura?
Yeah, it's coming up right now, as a matter of fact.
Okay, so we'll move on to item G. The proposed action may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of wastewater to surface waters.
Oh, that's G. So I have that as a no.
Question on that though, if they're washing gravel, is there discharge related to that?
But I have that being answered in number 8. Okay. Just in number H, letter H.
Okay. But saying are the facilities?
Yeah, and
there is,
and that's where.
Yeah, sorry.
So, and let me just make the clarification that this question is in terms of wastewater, and there is a subsequent question on stormwater. So stormwater runoff, and there is a collection pond as I think Larry, you mentioned or noted, that collects that runoff from the site and it infiltrates. So the proposed answer to question G would be no or small impact, and that's in relation to discharge of wastewater.
Right.
All right, so item H, the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving water bodies.
Right, so I have that as a kind of a question mark, as because with the delivery of the gravel, the gravel has to be washed down. The water goes into a basin, but that basin, has to be checked, I guess, by a code enforcer. And how often does a code enforcer actually check that? I mean, I just was not sure what to do about this letter.
Well, but this one, Laura, if I read it properly, the specific impacts are soil erosion or stormwater discharge. And it seems to me that the concerns that you just expressed are better covered in the next one rather than on this one.
I think that's something that, could be considered, a little under both. When we talk about soil erosion, one consideration that I mentioned to Laura is, soil erosion is tied in large part to soil disturbance. So as part of this application, the applicant is proposing to continue dock operations. And even in consideration of the disturbance at the shoreline that was done in 2016, triggering the action, the amount of area that was disturbed is very small, both in relation to the site, but in general terms as well. So the comparison I made to Laura is if you had 5 acres of riverfront land or right on a stream that was all disturbed and didn't have controls in place, you have a very high likelihood that you're going to create an adverse impact due to soil erosion. This site, there is no proposed disturbance other than what was completed, and even at that which was completed was a very small area. Stormwater discharge. This again, there is no creation of a source of stormwater discharge for the continuation of dock operations. Of course, the roof and the roof for the storage building and the impervious area does create stormwater discharge, and that is directed to an existing basin. So if that helps you consider whether it's no to small or moderate to large in terms of whether soil erosion or stormwater discharge could lead to siltation or other degradation of water bodies.
Okay, so I could use some help from the board on these because, but Ryan, the gravel being washed off, is that referenced in H? Would that go under H or I?
It's probably more appropriate under I, because I is not specifically referencing soil erosion or stormwater discharge. The washing down or the sprinkling of the site for dust control is not, while it's going to act like stormwater runoff, it is different than stormwater runoff technically. So I guess would be more to that point if that is the concern.
Ryan, if you look at the workbook, I talked about stormwater runoff as well, just not in the context of soil erosion. So other impacts from stormwater runoff. So I would think it would be appropriate in I.
Right, so I'm going to put moderate on that.
And that is for H or I?
I.
And H was no to small?
Yes. Yes, now it is, yes. Okay.
We all agreed with that? That makes sense to me personally, but are we agreed that H is no or small impact and I is moderate to large impact? I mean, it makes sense to me based on what Laura is telling us.
Well, what Ryan's telling us. Ryan, does that make sense to you and Victoria? Does that make sense to you?
Based on the information provided in the project file, yes.
Okay. All right. J and A.
Before we go on to I do think, so I guess this relates to John's question. And I don't know, Victoria, do we send a list of questions to the applicant after this review? And, I don't really know what the role of our investigation really is right now in terms of getting, them framing questions to them. But it seems to me that in the same way that I would imagine an offshore oil rig needs to have some sort of plan for what the impacts might be for an oil spill. God forbid there was a disaster or an accident and a barge capsized, flipped over, sank. Heaven knows what might happen. What would be the environmental impacts to the immediate river there in the event of such an, well, frankly, awfulness.
So just to start with your question, I see the applicant's been taking notes. I suspect that we will receive the revised EAF questions that we asked for. I also suspect that after our discussion, the applicant may want to address some of these issues. They may be able to answer them off the bat.
I think that there's possibility of a spill. Well, maybe not the kind you're talking about, Larry, but that's kind of also addressed in 4.
Okay.
But not really. I mean, you're talking about a spill in the river, right?
Right.
So we can ask the applicant. I'm sure that they have some kind of safety plan already in place that would address this, and see if they would share that with us.
Great.
That would be good, Ryan, if you could make a note, one of your little red boxes notes for that, please.
I will do that. All right, so that leaves us on item J, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, so item J, the proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in or around any water body.
So I answered no.
And are we sure about that?
No.
There's no lawn.
There is, and there is no part 1 of the form does not indicate there will be any use of pesticides or herbicides.
Yes, I just looked that up, actually. Sorry for the diversion. Apologies.
So we'll move on to K. The proposed action may require the construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities.
And I answered no.
And are there any other impacts you would like to consider under impacts to surface water?
I think John's question is useful here.
And just so we're all on the same page, that is disturbance of bottom sediments from tugs and barges?
Correct.
Correct.
And or spills of gravel into the river.
Other odd accidents.
So, I mean, we're going to get answers, but as far as the turbidity question, I did look in the workbook and it doesn't talk about turbidity from any kinds of boats. It's really focused on dredging, but we should make sure that the barges that come in, aren't of a particular size, which is going to cause it to touch the bottom. So Ryan, you said that you can look up information on depth and provide some.
Yeah, I will look up the depth of the river in that area, and then also will either look for a clarification from the applicant or ask the applicant for a clarification on typical barge sizes. I believe we have some of that information, but we can ask them about that. An emergency response plan if they were to spill, any of the material they ship from the dock into the river, and what their response plan is for that.
I believe it's listed as a deep water port, so.
It is, which is.
Right.
Okay. So if there's nothing else under item 3, surface water, we can move on to groundwater.
Yep.
So groundwater, just as a quick introduction, so the question posed is the proposed action may result in new or additional use of groundwater, or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. So the site through here is only about 10 feet above sea level. So there is, obviously groundwater on the site at a shallower depth. So that can be something you take into consideration with the answering of this question.
Betsy, this is your question?
This is my question. My reading of this, and I'm sorry, Ryan, I just ran out of time. I didn't have time to call you about this, is that I took this mainly to be when we're talking, if we were talking about new construction, wells being dug, things of that nature. So I really, in reading the applicants, what they sent into us and referring to questions D and E, the only thing that I was really particularly worried about was pesticides, which also came up in Laura's question 3. But I didn't see tremendous concern for groundwater, but I think we ought to still quickly go through the questions. And I may be wrong, Ryan. There may be things that we should be considering that I didn't.
Go ahead, Laura.
Well, I accidentally went through this and then realized that it wasn't my question, so I didn't do the deep comparison to part 1. But I have a couple of concerns here. I mean, if this was my question, I would be answering this yes.
Okay.
Basically because it talks about the potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or an aquifer. So to me, there's a potential of a spill of fuel oil on the site, for example.
Fair enough. I didn't think.
So why don't we go through the subsequent questions and then we can discuss it? Because as Betsy, you pointed out, some of this gets to a water supply well, which they're not proposing. So we'll check yes for impact on groundwater, and then we'll start under item A. The proposed action may require new water supply wells or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells.
And I felt that was a no.
No.
So item B, water supply demand from the proposed action may exceed safe and sustainable withdrawal capacity rate for the local supply or aquifer.
I said no.
Item C, the proposed action may allow or result in residential uses in areas without water and sewer services.
No.
Item D, the proposed action may include or require wastewater discharge to groundwater.
Unless we're counting wastewater as the residue from the gravel washing. No.
Well, but what's the question? Here's a question I have, I guess, is the holding pond?
The said pond?
Sediment pond. Maybe we need a little more explanation of what's happening there. Is that
so? What has been
washing?
So what has been presented in the project file by the applicant, that basin was formerly used when the site was used for shipment, storage and or shipment of salt. Basically, salt was being stored and transported on the site. And that actually was a lined basin at that point that then was pumped into, discharged into the river through pumping at an approved discharge rate. That is not what occurs there now. So the applicant has removed the liner since the site was already graded to sheet flow into that basin, water continues to do so. There is no level of, there is no like high level outlet or means of outlet, gravity outlet to the river. And they have represented that they never have to pump that it all infiltrates there. So that, hopefully that answers your question, Clark.
But there's no question of that infiltrate getting into the groundwater with any contamination.
So with any type of infiltration practice, there's always a potential for groundwater contamination because whatever is in that runoff has the potential to infiltrate. So, infiltration practices are not permitted on, for hotspot activities if you were having like a gas station or something like that. So that gets to the question of, likelihood and potential for a potential impact or a potential spill on the site that could wash off there. And I think that gets to, the question about an emergency response plan. And obviously the applicant has to comply with New York State requirements for spill response and notifications. When it comes to the gravel itself, this I believe is not a washing operation, but more so a dust control operation. So there's not, they're wetting down the pavements to keep dust at bay as best they can. They may, at times be spraying down the stockpiles. But usually dust control activities are needed during hot, dry weather. And there's not a tremendous amount of pitch to the site. So again, when we're talking about likelihood and probability here for impacts, these really hot days that get dusty and they're spraying it down, a lot of that water is evaporating just as quickly as, and I'm sure the folks at Colarusso would agree that it's probably a big challenge to keep dust under control there on those hot, dusty summer days.
But in terms of actual infiltration, I sort of looked at this as gravel dust, rock dust it's a naturally occurring thing. I mean, it's not a pollutant, and I didn't really feel that it was going to damage an aquifer.
So one potential impact from the gravel dust would be clogging of that basin, at which point the applicant would have to either clean that out and maintain that, or come up with some other solution for stormwater management on the site, which would trigger, the city code would trigger coming back before the planning board if they needed to modify their stormwater management system.
I want to press a little bit more just to be, I guess, maybe thorough. With the volume of trucks down there, and obviously there's a significant amount of I guess, roadway that they're traveling on, I guess you could assume that there's going to be potentially some petroleum spillage or some residue from trucks, given the sheer volume on the areas that are being sprayed down. And, is there a possibility of runoff based on that into maybe this holding pond or elsewhere?
I think it is reasonable to assume that there would be a potential for that. So that's where it comes down to questioning whether, so maybe the answer is not no, but that's where the planning board needs to consider whether that potential has a small, potential for a small impact or moderate to large impact. So the workbook actually under this question talks about, and I believe there is a subsequent question that we haven't gotten to, but if they had bulk storage of petroleum products or chemicals on site. So if they were storing thousands of gallons of some sort of petroleum product on site, that potential for impact increases. But if it's trucks coming and going, they have a legal responsibility to remedy those situations and report those situations if there is a leak in one of the lines on the loader that they use down there. So, there is most likely what you would be dealing with is very small amounts of any type of product that could be considered a contaminant. So that's where, the differentiation comes between small to moderate to large.
Yeah, I just didn't see it, you all. You disagree with me, but I didn't see it.
Right. I mean, the worst that would happen, the diesel truck would drain all of its fuel onto the gravel, and gravel permeates naturally and, probably leaches it all out before it hits the groundwater.
Right? In actuality, that occurrence, I have under other impacts, H, potential for, but we're not at H yet, so.
Okay, so I think we left off at D. The proposed action may include or require wastewater discharge to groundwater.
Where would they get wastewater from?
Okay, so item E, the proposed action may result in the construction of water supply wells in locations where groundwater is or is suspected to be contaminated.
Nope.
None are proposed. The proposed action may require the bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over groundwater or an aquifer.
Nope.
No, I have a comment on that, and that, and Ryan, that the applicant needs to confirm that this won't happen in some way. I mean, you talked about thousands of,
Well, bulk storage is a term of art in the DEC.
So the workbook here, bulks, it refers to one of the, under analysis is bulk storage of more than 1,100 gallons of petroleum or chemical product.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We can ask the applicant to confirm that there is no bulk storage of any chemical products or any petroleum products on site. But assuming, the project record does not reflect that there would be, and therefore what you are reviewing or what you would potentially be permitting would not include bulk storage.
The only thing that I can see that would have any kind of storage would be having fuel for the conveyor belt or backhoes and loaders and things like that. I don't know how much you'd have to keep there.
Yeah, but that probably wouldn't exceed 1,100 gallons, right? Is that
Well, yeah, that's how I just said. I have no idea,
We can ask the applicant to provide an explanation of how they deal with fueling of on-site equipment, like the generator, like the loader, things along those lines, whether they have a fuel supply service come in, on a daily or weekly basis to deal with that, or whether they have any, even small on-site storage, just so the planning board has a clear
Yeah,
picture.
they may just have a few barrels,
Right.
But I would think that there would be some there.
Okay, so that brings us to item G. The proposed action may involve the commercial application of pesticides within 100 feet of potable drinking water or irrigation sources.
And we determined that there was no pesticide being applied down there.
So the suggested response is no to small impact. Are there any other impacts that we want to consider under groundwater?
What I put in H, the potential for fuel, oil, or other contaminants from equipment on the site to spill. Remember this talks about potential here, so the potential for fuel, oil, or other contaminants from equipment or machinery, or I guess even trucks, on site to spill.
So with that as a potential impact, does the board feel that that is something that no or small impact may occur, or a moderate to large impact may occur?
Well, I said small, but I'll defer. People don't agree with me.
And this gets back to the question of, we have a question here on bulk storage. So this is going to be looking at anything less than bulk storage as defined by DEC, and whether, the board thinks the potential for that is small or moderate to large. So small has been offered up. Are there any other thoughts on that or questions?
John?
Contingent on the answer from the applicant on the question that you're going to ask them. It seems to me that it's small.
Okay.
I would think it's small too.
But then if we have, look on item 4, then that means A through H were all no's. So shouldn't we put no at the top?
Not necessarily, no. Because the question at the top is whether the action may have the potential to introduce contaminants. So,
okay. So you could that is. Yeah. I understand.
Oh, so you can answer yes and go down and no to small on every single one.
Right. I understand. Okay, thank you.
It doesn't help that the DEC form doesn't separate out no to small either,
The form is not intuitive.
And this is an unusual application as well. So the form doesn't really speak to things like this, which makes the nuance kind of important. So I think we can move on to 5.
Yes. And who's taking care of impact? So question 5 is impact on flooding.
Yeah, that's Clark.
That would be me.
And can I just ask a question? Do we have a projected end time? Just
Yes, because we do have other applications. So I was actually going to get through this question and then suggest that maybe we continue this next time. We can stop here as well. I will tell you what is on our agenda. We do have people waiting. We have 4143 North 7th Street site plans, and we have 7 Fairview Avenue site plans. We have bills, committee reports, and a couple of other housekeeping.
Well, Betsy, I also want to ask, now I got the part 1 from an older date. I never got the updated one, so I would like to get the updated one because I think I'm going to change something for my number 6.
Okay.
I'll speak to you, Ryan, later about it, but
yeah.
All of this.
So the most recent EAF that was filed is from December 10th, I believe, December 2019, December 10th. It was just before the December 10th board meeting. And that was the EAF that was circulated to the other involved and interested agencies. So I can make sure that gets over to Betsy.
We got that in a recent email, actually, and I
think Betsy sent that to us.
Yeah, the subject line is FEAF 18 questions, and it's in that thread.
And it has
it has no date. Anyway.
It has no date.
We'll send it again anyway, Ryan.
Yes, that's correct. There's no date at the end of it.
There's no date at the end of the one we received. Is that the latest one? Because that's the same one you're reading off, Laura, that, and you even said something should have been changed, and it's not. So
how your answers were different than mine, and I thought I sent you.
Yeah, wait a minute. Like you said, 2D. D2B should have been a yes, and it was a no, stuff like, so was it a yes?
She's saying, she was commenting that it still needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Oh, so they haven't done it yet.
They haven't made those changes.
I was making a comment that it's my recommendation.
Okay.
Here's a question for Ryan, in fact, and maybe this is part of the confusion. The letter by Mr. Prendergast is dated December 10th, but if I'm not mistaken, that's a cover letter which has EAF attached to it with another letter, unless I'm misplacing my pages here, but it says February 17, 2016.
That's correct.
Is that the latest up to date? I was a little bit panicked here too, thinking there was a new one, but if that's the most recent EAF.
Yes, so the attached letter from February 17th, 2016 is from Department of State, and that's, that's in regard to their Department of State's general concurrence for the nationwide permit that was issued for the work. Yes, that is the one that I've been referring to, and that's the one that has been sent out.
All right, so just to eliminate any potential confusion, I will send you all the copy of part 1 that Ryan sent to me. So we are all working on exactly the same one. I believe we're all together, but just to eliminate any concern. So I do need to go back to a question that was posed about timing tonight. We're at a little after 8 o'clock. We still have 2 more applications to review tonight. Do you all want to put a stop on this for the time being?
I would love it if we could get through one more question. I mean, there's 18 of them, and it seems to me that the applicant is waiting, And if we get through another one tonight, there's a greater chance that we'll get through more, maybe all the more, in our next session.
Okay.
Following up on Larry's comment, I think flooding should go pretty quickly.
Okay. Great. And let's do it. Let's do it. Flooding. Number 5.
Number 5.
All right.
Impact on flooding is yes, mainly because it's an 100-year plain and a 500-year floodplain, and may result in a development as a designated floodway. I believe all those are yes. A key question is the proposed action may result in or require modification of existing drainage patterns. I am ambivalent in questioning that one.
So that question gets to drainage patterns would be something along the lines of, are we changing cover types? So if you're going from forest to grass to asphalt, that's something that could affect it. Slopes could affect it. Whether it's being piped or open drainage could affect drainage patterns. So anything that could affect the amount, quality, or velocity of any runoff. So with this project, since the action is the conditional use permit for the continuation of, there are no proposed modifications to the site itself. So drainage patterns, pre-development drainage patterns and post-development drainage patterns will remain identical.
And the shoreline repair won't change.
Which number is
the shore, that is sub-question D under 5D. So the shoreline work, the bulkhead replacement was an in-kind replacement. The shoreline work, that area was stabilized using, best management practices for that type of shoreline. So I know there's been photos, and I'm going to see if I can dig those up quickly. But there have been photos submitted. So prior to this is the bulkhead. All right, so I've got them here. Let me just share my screen. As we talk about this, I think it might be beneficial. So this is the portion of shoreline work before the work was done. So drainage in this area would, sheet flow off right into the river. And then after repair, this is what's seen. So with riprap of this size, there is typically not sheet flow, so it infiltrates to a subgrade level and then either sheets down or infiltrates. This is an area where, relatively speaking on the site and the shoreline on the site is a small area that was improved so that there is less potential for soil erosion in this area. And actually having a surface like this will slow down runoff compared to, let's say, asphalt.
Brian, do we have those photographs?
They're in
these. I believe you should, but I can send those to you. And there's actually some photos. Well, let me put them up on my screen. So when we're talking about the bulkhead repair, this is the before picture and the after picture is here. So you can see they modified from concrete to steel, but and I think it's taken from a slightly different angle, but they maintained the horizontal location of that bulkhead.
Cool.
Okay.
So I can email those all over to you guys.
Thank you.
These pictures are from from some time ago. I saw them.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. I'm out. That's it.
Okay, so So when we're looking through the sub-questions here, item 1, I know, Clark, you mentioned that for items A through C, those are all, the site is partially, within all of those designated resources. So as we look to either small, moderate, or large, the proposed action may result in development in a designated floodway.
Yes, moderate to large.
Okay. Moving on to item B, the proposed action may result in development within a 100-year floodplain.
Moderate to large.
The proposed action may result in development within a 500-year floodplain.
Moderate to large.
The proposed action may result in or require modification of existing drainage patterns.
No or small impact.
Okay. The proposed action may change floodwater flows that contribute to flooding.
No or small.
If there is a dam located on the site of the proposed action, is the dam in need of repair or upgrade?
No or small, none. NA, not applicable.
And are there any other impacts to consider under flooding?
The only comment I made is that, thinking about this, it's a unique site in that it's tidal, right? So it's both subject to tidal surge, storm surge, as well as potential flow from upstream. So
Is it still tidal up here?
Yes, it is.
All the way to
It's title to the Troy Dam.
Yeah.
Until Troy.
So that increases the possibility of flooding. That's my main comment.
Now, does everyone agree with the characterization of the magnitude of either small or moderate to large that were identified?
Ryan, I do have a question about that. This question confused me when I read it, and I was looking in the workbooks about it, because the action in and of itself isn't creating a problem, but it's cited where a problem can happen. And I wasn't exactly sure how to differentiate those two things in my mind when I was thinking about this.
So, and that is because you'll notice the way these questions are worded is different. So the proposed action may result in development within a designated floodway. So, a small impact could be something like utility poles or sidewalks or something like that, or if the buildings were raised. Moderate to large typically would be, let's say this site was not, not already at the existing grade and 5 feet of fill was going to be brought in. So it's still, you should consider what the modifications to the site are that is proposed as part of the action, and how those may impact, those designated resources. So this is where, it gets into the tricky situation of the site is built out, and the applicant is not proposing significant alterations from the existing condition. So, I'm just looking, let me look here in the workbook. So under item A, for example, under will there be an impact? If there is no land disturbance or development of any kind in the floodway, then there will be no related impacts. So the operations will be located. And so that's when there's really not much guidance on operations. It's more in terms of a lot of the guidance for these questions is about the actual changing of the floodway dynamics and whether you're placing fill in the floodplain, floodways that would change flooding patterns, velocities, levels elsewhere. So you can imagine on a much smaller scale, a much smaller stream, if you have a broad cross section in a channel and one person on the side fills theirs with 5 feet of fill, it's going to exacerbate flooding on the other side of the stream. And that's what this is getting at, is how we're Obviously the shoreline has been significantly altered at the site and in, the entire city throughout, the past, but how will this action impact flooding activities?
So
That's
not
sort of
the
how-
likelihood of the site being flooded, but
Yeah,
how,
That's the difference. And that's why, Clark, I was sort of a little bit surprised by your answer, only because I thought this proposed action isn't creating flooding. It's at a site where flooding can occur.
Well, even in their EAF, Betsy, they check the 100-year and 500-year flood.
Oh, I
plain.
do. I agree with those being, that's
located.
It is located there.
My interpretation too is that we're obviously, again, I go back again to the notion that we're reviewing an operation, and that operation is in a flood zone. So it being flooded will create impacts, including whatever impacts may result from flooding.
Well, so again, I think the question here is asking about when you're located within a floodplain and you are creating new disturbance, how is that new disturbance impacting the neighboring lots and the ability of other people to avoid being flooded, right? Because when you put some kind of fill in, that water has to go somewhere else. Here,
Or change the cover.
I think you were going to say change the contours. Ryan's frozen.
Or change the cover types of, the site. So if the applicant was proposing, the site is 12 acres and change or something like that, if the applicant was proposing to add 5 acres of paved impervious area, that reasonably could have an impact on flooding because that's less area that would be able to infiltrate floodwaters. So things that would affect the cross section, the volume of the floodplain, the floodway, or how that water interacts with the site are items that you would want to consider here.
Well, but I mean, I want to go back to this distinction that we're trying to figure out between whether the operations on the site disturb or alter existing flood patterns, or whether there are significant impacts in the event of flooding, right? And it seems to me that the latter is actually much more significant a concern, at least for me. I mean, in the event of a major flood, could, for instance, the crane or the conveyor, become unmoored, float down the river and smash into the lighthouse, right? I mean, that seems to me to be a potential flooding hazard. And if that's not covered under this language, that's totally fine. Maybe that's an other. So it's not really that the operations on the site alter in any kind of way existing flood patterns, but rather the mere presence of the operations create an added or increased risk in the event of a catastrophic flooding.
Right. And if you look at
can I read the questions from the workbook on this question about the 100-year floodplain?
Yeah.
So some of the questions they want you to look at. What land disturbance or construction will take place in the 100-year floodway? Will the proposed project alter the flow of water or change drainage patterns into the water body? What is the base flood elevation compared to the elevation of the structure? Has the applicant calculated base flood elevation? Does the proposal meet requirements of floodplain management law? What flood protection is proposed? What is the extent of recurring flooding in that location? What is the vulnerability of existing and proposed development activities? And any other mitigation methods to reduce flooding or flood damage?
Yeah.
So I think the intent here is really getting at the actual flow of water.
Right. What's the second to the last one again? Can you read the second to the last one?
What is the vulnerability of existing and proposed development activities?
Yeah, that to me, if there's any impact, it's in that realm right there, right? That inherently having operations like this has bulky equipment and massive amounts of gravel could create an incident in the event of a flood. And
so it gives some examples just like that. So moderate to large impact. These are some examples. construction of large expanses of impervious surface, land uses that store chemicals or petroleum products, waste treatment or solid waste facilities in the 100-year floodplain, or alterations within the 100-year floodplain. So there, you know, a solid waste facility in the 100-year floodplain, it speaks to the comment that you have, Mr. Brown.
But I think with what Larry said, it's not a matter of, say, a conveyor falling into the river, but a barge becoming unmoored. That's happened on more than one occasion. You know, and, you know, if the river is flowing at a furious rate in a flood situation, it's going to be mostly going south. And, you know, the barge could hit the lighthouse. I mean, it could do damage downstream, lighthouse being an extreme example.
I'm going to explain my interpretation maybe a little more too. Very simply, the proposed action may result in development in a designated floodway or a 100-yard floodplain or 500-yard floodplain. And I guess for me, again, to beat the dead horse here, the development really is the operations we're looking at. So this is very much geared towards a developer wants to come into a floodplain zone and you are revealing that you are developing in a floodplain. Here we have an operation in a floodplain, which clearly isn't a designated floodway. It's in a 100-year floodplain and it's a 500-year floodplain. So I guess I just was checking the boxes very simply because it was identified in that zone. Larry's pointed out any number of, you know, impacts. John's pointed out impacts. I'm sure we could spend, you know, some time thinking about the other impacts of the site being flooded.
Well,
Clark, I agree with your analysis factually. I was just asking the board whether this was a small impact or a moderate to large impact, because just the fact that it is doesn't say anything about this, you know, the magnitude.
Yeah.
And is the person who owns the property responsible for the barge that's lashed to the dock, or is that the shipping company that's shipping the, you know?
I did a little more research, Victoria, too, maybe to help out a little bit. And I know the term 100-year floodplain, you know, we all may think that it's, well, one flood every 100 years, which I believe is the general accepted definition.
It was, yeah.
But if you can indulge me, just I did some additional research, and I'm happy just for the record to tell you what USGS has said about the 100-year floodplain. You know, 100-year flood is an estimate of a long-term average recurrence interval, which does not mean that we have nearly 100 years between floods. Floods happen irregularly. Consider the following: over 1,000 years stream flow, we have to expect 10 floods of greater than a 100-year flood during that period. These floods would not occur at 100-year intervals. In one part of the 1,000-year record, it could be 15 years, or in other places it might be 100 years. They go on to say that a 100-year flood of yesterday may not be the 100-year flood of today, as indicating some charts that the 100-year flood is clearly changed, and the climate patterns, impoundments, changes to amount of impervious surfaces, and especially climate change the definition of what a 100-year flood is. And then here's just a little more information from the LWRP, doing my homework here a little bit. From the LWRP, a 100-year flood says the water levels will range from 14 feet to 25 feet above the escarpment or the north and the south bays. And they give a list, which we probably all know, of areas that would be flooded by a 100-year flood. I also found a research report from Yale, that talked about the 100-year flood with climate change being far more frequent than in fact. The study I found indicated that can be as often as 30 years. Happy to share that for record. It's a paper published in Nature Communications. Researchers combined storm surge, sea level rise, and predicted increase in occurrence of tropical storms, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess the point being is that the 100-year flood, just to get a little more, I guess, clarity on what that means, those floods are happening more and more frequently. And I think we should all understand that as a board who's making, you know, a determination based on impacts, including the fact that this operation is in a floodplain.
That's a really good point. And one, comment that I'll just make there is, another way in that you'll see referred to as, 100-year, 500-year floods is based on their annual exceedance probability. So a 100-year flood has a 1% chance of occurring on any given year. A 500-year flood has a 0.2% chance of occurring on any given year. But as you know, that changes over time as flows change and as we see results of climate change.
I see a lot of places with 100-year floods happening quite often these days.
For those of you who lived here, was the site submerged either during Hurricane Sandy or Irene?
I don't remember.
I don't think it was, but one of the things that causes floods here is upstream activity in the wintertime.
Yeah.
What will happen is there'll be an ice jam on the Mohawk River or the Upper Hudson River. And when that ice jam breaks, the amount of water that comes down is pretty severe. I mean, the entire boat launch parking lot, and when the tank farm was there, that whole area there was under probably, I'd say, 2 to 3 feet of water from an ice jam that broke and affected us. Because there's an awful lot of water from all the tributaries that goes into the Hudson River.
And I do know during Irene and Sandy that the launch end was completely submerged, as were the railroad tracks.
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't.
And as for information, when you're, going through your analysis of small, moderate, or large, the base flood elevation or the 100-year floodplain or the 1% annual exceedance probability in this area is 12 feet above sea level based on the FEMA adopted maps.
Right.
The site itself varies from at the driveway entrance at about 8 feet above sea level to the bulkhead about 10 feet above sea level. So, with that, and of course, nothing is as modeled and as mapped, but at a 12-foot flood elevation, water depths would vary from 2 to 4 feet on the site.
Yeah, there is a map too in the LWRP, the 100-year floodplain. I'm assuming that's reasonably accurate. That whole area is underwater. I mean, a significant portion of that whole bay is underwater, obviously.
Okay, so we're on G, Clark, 5G.
Okay.
Wait, but
So
we did,
go ahead, Victoria.
oh no, I was just asking if everyone agreed on the small or moderate. I don't think we ever got an answer on that.
So right now, there are moderate to large selections for the first 3 questions, which are about development in a designated floodway within a 100-year floodplain and within a 500-year floodplain, respectively. And then there's no to small impact selections for the second 3 regarding modifications to drainage patterns or changes to water flows and flooding. And lastly, whether there's a dam on the site. So those are the selections as proposed. Is the planning board in concurrence on those?
I'm fine with that.
Yes.
I agree with Clark.
Yep.
Okay.
And thank you for explaining your thinking, Clark. That was really
Well,
interesting.
the research project, quite interesting, fascinating
Yeah.
stuff.
No, I'm really thrilled.
Area.
Okay, do we have anything for 5G or
Oh, is G
the other?
Well, I mentioned the other being, and this is sort of me just, I don't know, thinking about it, is that we're obviously subject to both storm surge and, flow of the river. If there's a massive storm up the river, we're going to get flooded. And if there's a hurricane coming in with the storm surge, it's going to get flooded. So I'm not
And
sure
with the tide, that exacerbates it.
Yeah.
All right. So board, I'm going to suggest at this point that we call this until next time. We still have a couple of applications and some homework and some, homework to do. So are you in agreement that we can put a pause on this until the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay with me.
No? Steve, you good? Larry, you good? Okay. All right, Ryan, thank you very, very much for walking us through this. Victoria, thank you very, very much for your help.
You're welcome. I will provide the marked up version to you, Betsy, and I will also summarize the comments and clarifications and items that we need to go back to pending those clarifications from the applicant.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank
so
you, Ryan.
much. You're making progress. Okay.
You're welcome. Have a good night, everybody.
Yes.
Take care.
All right. That was really interesting conversation. I learned a lot, I have to say. So now we are moving on to, I'm sure our applicants are thrilled.
Teresa has a question.
Teresa has a
Teresa's
question.
waving her.
Sorry,
Unmute
Teresa.
yourself, Teresa.
You're, let me, hold on.
Muted.
Maybe I can unmute you. Can you unmute yourself, Teresa? No.
She can?
Look down your lower left screen. Do you see the little mute button? No. Okay. I can't hear you. So we could text, or Shaheem, perhaps you could help.
We can do. She got to unmute herself if she can.
I just texted her to tell her to unmute.
All right, so moving on to new business, and I want to thank you, new business friends, for being so patient with us. First, we have 4143 North 7th Street, site plans from Ingenuity Design to demolish an existing section of the building and reconstruct for a new restaurant. Per code 325.35, site plan approval is required for any commercial expansion of the ground floor of more than 25%. So, board, I want you to know that as proposed, this is quite a straightforward demo and reconstruction of an existing building with a modest expansion. It's definitely a type 2 under seeker because it's less than 4,000 square feet of new ground area. So tonight we can review the site plan and ask the questions and ask our questions about their plans, and then we can determine whether or not we want a public hearing. It is not required for this application, but we may want to, depending on what potential impacts we think might occur to the neighbors in the neighborhood. So,
Hey, Betsy?
Yes.
We continue. So Teresa texted me, her computer's frozen. Please send her the tech number, and she can't see anybody either. So what number would she call in?
Shaheem, are you there?
Uh-oh.
All right. Yeah, I can send her Shaheem's contact information.
Yeah, I'm here.
So let's go ahead and who would like to speak on behalf of Ingenuity tonight?
Good evening, I'm Tim Schroeder from Ingenuity Design.
Hey, Tim.
And also the owner, Andy McCardle, is on.
Okay, great. There you are, Tim. I see you. Okay. Thanks for your patience. We appreciate it. So go ahead and tell us what you're planning on doing at the site. Feel free to share your screen.
Yep, I'm doing that right now. All right, you should be able to see the site plan now. Okay, so this is the existing Bagel Time building. We started out, we were originally going to renovate the section of the original Bagel Time and do these two additions on the front and the back. During this process here, Andy's decided that it would be more beneficial to raise the building and then reconstruct a new building due to the extensive amount of modifications to the building that would be required. The addition is roughly, if I remember right, between 35 and 40%, so we're just over the threshold to get it. The new building is going to be very similar to the existing, and we've been through the historic review already. I'll just show you the elevations of the building here. So this is the front elevation of the building, looking at it from 7th Street. And this is the area of the building that would be demolished and then reconstructed here. And this is looking at it from the alley. So the existing building is roughly from here to here. We're adding a small addition on the front and a slightly larger addition on the back. The as far as site changes, very minimal site changes to it. We're going to be eliminating 2 parking spaces. I'm going to provide an accessible parking space in the back for ADA entry into the building in the rear. We'll still have 1 additional parking space. Adding a shed, which is just in this back here with the dumpsters for garbage storage. And we're going to remove an area of the impervious blacktop to make this yard more grass back here for events. I think there's anything else. The we have a sound fence that we're proposing to put on the borders of the property to the neighbors between here to control any sound coming out of the events.
So Tim, can you explain to me what a sound fence is?
We're going to put up a fence and we're going to add a sound absorption material to mitigate any noise, to reduce the intensity outside of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Can you describe for us what the event area is like and what kind of activities are going to happen out there?
Andy, you want to answer that question better than I can?
Sure. Well, we own an existing restaurant, Isan Thai Star. You may be familiar. And with the increased necessity for outdoor dining, particularly under the current circumstances, we hope to utilize it in that manner. In terms of events, we'd like to, on occasion, potentially have private parties that would, would not exceed the occupancy level of the building, and certainly with a controlled noise level. Thinking, and this is me thinking out loud, it's not something that's written in stone, but I was thinking of doing like a movie noodle night where you could come and enjoy some noodles and watch a vintage movie in the backyard.
Movie noodle? That's a nice phrase.
Yeah, nice comfortable chair. You could have some noodles and a cocktail and watch a movie.
Awesome.
So those are the ideas initially, in particular, because that part of town right now really doesn't have a whole lot going on in it. And, we still are able to stay in our existing space for the time being. So as things start to pick up in that part of town, as you probably know, there's a planned brew pub going in the former train depot on the opposite corner. And what else is going on? I believe that there is plans in the works for the tennis court building. So, things will eventually start to develop in that part of town, and we're looking forward to that. There's not a lot of residences in terms of on that section of 7th Street, in terms of people that actually live there. We have one neighbor. They're very supportive of our efforts right next to us. And I guess there's a couple in the back, but mostly, we're surrounded by that big marina. I forget what her name is, but anyway, the tennis court building on Columbia Street. Yeah, right.
Us old guys call it the community theater.
The community theater. Okay. Yeah. I would love to see it become the community theater again.
Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be great.
So anyway, we'd like to move our restaurant there eventually. We're looking towards the future.
So just so I understand, you're going to knock down the little gable roof structure that is there now, increase the footprint a bit, and put a new structure around the same bulk, slightly bulkier, in its place. Is that?
That's correct. I mean, initially, it really does not change in terms of its appearance very much in regards to our original plan, which we were not required to go through the planning board for, as Tim shows in that drawing there, of an addition on the front and back of the building. But it got to the place where I've been doing this, working on it, and the floor in the existing building was out 3 inches, and we were already cutting into the wall and cutting into the roof system. So I got to the place, I mean, it's just an old block building there's really not very much to it at all. And it just seemed ludicrous. I mean, the concrete people who I've been working with, they said, oh, well, we'll just cut out the floor and put a new one in. And at that point, I was like, well, what's left of this building? What am I trying to save here? So, it didn't make any sense anymore. So the current plan is to start new, which will afford us a bit more square footage because we are going to have a full basement.
Okay. Board, do you have any more questions?
Have any information? I mean, I'm really appreciate that you've been considerate enough to consider this sound fence. I'm just not really familiar with the sort of technology, I guess. How successful are these at mitigating noise, and is there sort of technical data provided about how many decibels it can absorb and things like that?
They're used in a lot of construction sites and around that in order to mitigate things. So they're used frequently in that regards. There is data that I can get to you on the sound absorption. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
And are you? And I suppose that I'm seeing here that the sound fence is 15 feet high, right? That's a pretty high fence. So look, what is it? The lower portion can be solid, but above.
No, we're the area where we are. There is no restriction on the fence. This is actually replacing existing fencing that was there.
Oh.
It was originally the Blue Anchor Youth Center. It was built as that, and then there was a basketball court in the back.
Yep.
They had fences that were quite high all the way around in order to keep the basketballs from going into the neighboring properties.
Got it.
So,
could you make the site location map bigger?
Oh, sorry. I'm just going to show you the fence rendering here.
Yeah, just show us where that fence is here.
The fence is right here and right here. Can't really see in this.
And those are residences that would be protected, that the fence would be.
Correct. There's a residence here.
State Street, I see. Yeah.
it was actually my idea to do the fence just because I'm trying to be considerate of the neighbors. And I've seen, like, for example, instances in Hudson, like where the back bar, for example, they've had issues with their neighbors in the past. Not that I plan on having a bar, because I don't. We're a restaurant. That's what we are. You know, I want to preserve a good relationship with the neighbors. So that's why I opted to implement this fence.
And this might have been asked while I had to take a quick break, but how late would the outdoor area be used?
I'm going to say approximately 10 o'clock. I don't imagine it would ever go any later than that.
And what days of the week would it go to 10 o'clock every?
That would probably be more oriented towards weekends. Our restaurant will, you know, currently, like, the hours we're running now are from 4 to 9:30. There might be occasions where people are sitting out back, but that certainly would not be generating any kind of noise level that it would be disturbing or even, disturbing enough to even require a fence of that nature.
Oh, great.
So
I like drawings.
Yeah, these are the drawings that went through the historical review and were approved last month.
And we don't have these, right? I haven't seen this before.
No, I did not include them with the set.
Can you do that for us?
What's that?
Can you forward this to us?
Absolutely.
All right, tell us what we're looking at.
So these are the renderings that we generated. So this is the existing residential section of the building, which we're not doing anything to on this elevation. And this is the 7th Street elevation of the new building. The entrance is over on the left end here. These are going to be operable front door windows are going to open. We've recessed the front face of the building 2 feet so that those doors can open without impeding the sidewalk in any way. And then up in the top here over this section of the space, we're going to have a clerestory with windows on the front and the back to promote ventilation, especially with our COVID concerns, and assuming that that's going to continue on, but it'll give us a very open, airy space when we're able to open the front. Not shown in the rendering is on the back. We actually have 2 overhead doors, aluminum glass overhead doors that will be able to open. So this will be a very open entertainment restaurant space here. So over here, we're talking about the 15-foot fence. So from the neighbor's side, they would see this, which would basically look like the side of a house, T111 siding painted with a top rail. On the interior side, we're going to use a slat system in order to obscure the sound material will be white, and it'll be in between the slats and the T111 siding, and there may be some accent lighting added in this area as well. And then we just have a simple elevation of the shed, which would be used for storage of cardboard in here and then miscellaneous items in here. And this is a shorter fence that would be installed between the parking area and the exterior event space.
And what's the distance between where the fence is and the residences' backyards, or whatever I don't know if they have backyards, but
Well, the fence will be installed on our side of the property line for the backyards. It will not change their backyards in any way. Distance.
how many feet do they have before their house?
I don't have that measurement, but my recollection is somewhere in the order of 30 feet.
are you asking the distance from the fence to the houses on their property?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, it varies between 20 and 30 feet.
I have a question. I just got back in, so you might have answered this, but am I wrong to say that fences in Hudson, did you get permission for a 15-foot fence?
In this area of the town, the zoning does not restrict the fence height. We've already went through, spoken to Craig about that. There is in much of the rest of the town, there's a different code that restricts the fences, but we do not fall under that jurisdiction.
You do not fall under the 6-foot fence jurisdiction.
Correct.
Located on what, 7th and right between, was it State and Columbia?
Correct.
That's correct. The pre-existing fence was 15 feet as well.
So they're saying they're letting you have it because it was pre-existing?
And I wouldn't say it was based on that.
Reviewing the town building code, it is allowed. Like I say, there, and the code does have a provision, and blanking on the exact provision, but it does not apply to this area. Craig, we reviewed it with Craig during the historic review, and he agrees that it is allowed.
Okay. I do have a question about the backyard space, and Tim or Andy, I'm not sure which of you I'm directing this to, but to whomever. Typically with site plans, we want to see furniture. Is there any permanent furniture out there? Is there any planting beds, lighting, anything like that that we need to know about the outside space?
Well, furniture would be movable, because obviously when in the event of inclement weather, you're going to want to put things away in the wintertime and you know, and be able to reconfigure it. As a restaurant, you're going to want to be able to move tables around to accommodate different size parties. So the initial plan certainly is to have tables, as you would in a restaurant, configured as two tops, which could be put together. That's the most, that gives you the most freedom in terms of configuration, is to have small tables of two that can be grouped together when you have larger parties. That's what I do in my restaurant, on the floor of the restaurant now, and you know, it works well for us. So that's its function as a restaurant. Certainly, you know, if we're doing a movie night or something, it might be nice to put some more comfortable lounge chairs out front, out there, where people could relax a little bit and enjoy a movie.
And what about lighting, Andy? Are you installing permanent lighting out there?
There is a light on the gable end of the actual, what is now the house, that's pre-existing. There's also the option of being able to do string lighting in the back. So that's what I'm thinking is string lighting up above for the light, and also within the fence to have some just low voltage ambient lighting, just for you know, just to make it nice.
So we'd probably want to see a, you know, a drawing of that, of your lighting plan.
Okay, I mean, basically, I mean, I did barn weddings for years up in the Catskills, and would get the heavy duty cable that has sockets for lights, and you get the Edison bulbs, and you string them off the posts of the fence and whatnot. So it creates a nice look, a rustic nice look.
No, I do think that well, Betsy, do you think that we're headed towards the public hearing on this? Because I think some of my comments are presuming that we are.
Make your comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Well, I mean, I think that a little bit more information, you know, whether it's like, you know, I think we're familiar with these lights, but it might help if indeed we do wind up going to a public hearing, that folks have some idea, you know, photographs of the existing 15-foot high fence, and then maybe an elevation of what you propose for the extent of the fence. You know, where's the screen gonna be? Is it visible from the neighboring, you know, bedroom windows, so that if there's a movie playing, then, you know, it's the light.
Well, I'm sorry. That would certainly be one of the objectives of having a high fence, is that we're able to put a movie screen on it that, you know, you could draw down, and it would project in such a way that it would not disturb the neighbors.
Right. But rather than, you know, explain that to us verbally, if there were, you know, drawings or diagrams, photographs that showed us, and indeed, if it goes to public hearing, the public, just what it is that we're actually approving here. Okay.
And you're including in that the lighting too, because I mean, the neighbors are going to want to be able to understand the lighting.
Well, the lighting that I'm suggesting is also not permanent. It's lighting that would be put away during the winter months. It would be, you know, that's the advantage of string lighting, is that you're able to take it down and put it away. So it's by no means permanent. The only permanent lighting in the back that's slated at present is the lights that are, in fact, on the existing building over the back doorway.
Yeah.
You see where that arrow is on the map that says entry? There's a light over the top of that entry. And you know, that's, and other than that, you'd basically have some string lighting, which would be really basic in the backyard that would be taken down during you know, the months where, in the winter months where it's not in use. So it's pretty simple.
Okay, you said that they're gonna have movies. I might have missed this. There are movies outside?
We would like to have the option to be able to do that, yes.
Okay, I want to ask you a question then. So that means people are gonna sit in a seat and they're gonna watch a screen? Is that how you explained it? I might have missed it.
No, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I'm sure people would like to sit down while they watch the movie for sure.
Well, some people like to do other things, but how are they gonna be hearing the movie? They're gonna have earphones or something in their ear? Or is it gonna be loud enough so everyone, how many people are gonna be there? Or what is the maximum capacity? And how will they hear it? If I'm close to the screen or if I'm the last person coming in? What is the
Intention is to have a portable Bose PA speaker that literally runs on a lithium ion battery and is audible within the confines of that yard.
So if I'm near the backyard, but not there inside watching, I might can hear it?
Not, you might hear it distantly a bit, but you would, if you're inside our building, yes, because we do have openings to that space. You would not hear it if you were in the neighboring yards.
Really?
I don't believe so. That is my intention, is to keep the noise level to a.
Well, you have a
I
roof.
can hear people talking. I could be upstairs and I hear people talking downstairs in front of my house. I don't think that is possible. And they're just talking.
Right.
On the street.
Yeah.
Well, you have windows to the street, right?
Yeah.
So,
that
I
house
mean,
next to you doesn't have windows on the side? Or did you buy the house next door?
no, I didn't buy the house next door, but I am constructing a fence that is made with sound deadening material that absorbs sound, and that's my objective. I understand what you're saying. Put it this way: I'm not going to guarantee that you will hear nothing, but it'll be an audible level that will be, you know, would be considered within the level of tolerance of anybody who lives in a small city like Hudson. I do not want to disturb the neighbors.
And what's the capacity back there? I know that it's going to vary, but what's the capacity?
The overall capacity of the building, once constructed, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, is 98 people. There is a floor plan for the seating, which is laid out specifically for COVID, which shows 52 people. Maybe we could pull up that floor plan, and you'll see.
Yeah,
so that's the building itself, and basically, I have no intention of exceeding the capacity of the building, And of course, Craig will have input on that as well. I mean, if for some reason Craig says, no, you can't have 98 people here, and he says you can only have 60 people here, then that's what it'll be. I mean, it'll be whatever is safe. What you're seeing here is a floor plan which represents 6-foot spacing between the tables and seating areas. Even at the bar, you see 3 groups of 2 seats spaced 6 feet apart from one another. So that is right there. What you're looking at is if you include every seat that's taken on the premises, it's 52 seats.
Yeah, that's the COVID. That's what you're doing for COVID. But really, I guess, what's the capacity, allowable capacity for outside? Is it? Let's get past COVID. What's the capacity for outside? And what's the capacity for inside? Or are they the same?
I'm not seeing them as really as two separate spaces. You know, it is part of the same property. On the back, if you look at the back of this drawing, you'll see two squares, which represent basically overhead doors that open up to the backyard. So it's a very open area space. And the backyard is certainly part of it. It's not included in the diagram of the building because what I'm thinking is the right thing to do is to allow the building itself to dictate within the parameters of building code, fire code, safety, all that, what the capacity is of the entire property.
Yeah, I just guess I'd like to know if I'm going to go see a movie there, how many people am I going to be watching the movie with?
In the backyard, I don't think there's going to be more than 30 or 40 people maximum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I understand now yes, if we showed a movie one night, you certainly, I would not want to exceed that level of people in the backyard at one time.
So board, thank you very much, Andy and Tim. What are you thinking? Do you feel that we should have a public hearing so that the neighbors can weigh in here?
Yes.
Laura, was that a yes from you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a yes for me, but I just want to comment that the applicants that at this point, all of us now having done this several times, you know, the less ambiguous you can be in terms of, you know, a public hearing and for this board, the better. And so though we have, and I think Larry has too, brought up lighting. And if there could be a drawing or something specific about the lighting, you know, I think that it will benefit you, even though we understand it's string lighting, you know, to neighbors, I would suppose might be concerned about the lighting, you know, obviously the sound, and the more you can present to them to show them that the lighting won't affect them when they're in their backyards, you know, having a cookout while you're showing a movie or having a party.
Actually, my next door, the most immediate neighbor is actually in his backyard, put up the same string lighting that I'm talking about without having consulted anybody. Not that I don't have to consult anybody. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they have string lighting in their backyard right now as we speak.
Yeah, I don't want to focus on the lighting. I think just in principle, and I don't know if you were on the Zoom session when we looked, for instance, earlier at the Wild project. But the more articulate the visuals and the graphics and the images that you can provide, I think the easier and quicker the approval process can be. And so show us photographs of the existing, somehow indicate where the screen might be, what it might be like. You know, if you have a picture of an outdoor space with the string lights, it doesn't have to be necessarily explicit rendering, because those take time and money to generate. But if there are other examples of restaurants that have a little outdoor garden patio thing with some overhead lights and a little background screen, just some things so that when people hear you, not just us, but the public, they can say, oh yeah, I got that, I like that. Or they can say, oh wow, I had no idea, right? And I think it advances the conversation much better. The more explicit you can be, and the more examples and images that you can give us, whether there's drawings, photographs, renderings, whatever, I think the faster everything goes.
Thank you for that input. We'll work on getting all that stuff prepared and into you 10 days before the meeting, so you have a chance to see it. And we'll have it for the meeting.
Perfect. That's great. So board, it sounds like you want to set a public hearing for December. That is totally fine. We will take care of getting the notice in the paper, Tim, so you don't have to worry about that.
I do have one question.
Oh yes, Andy, go ahead.
Is this delay the actual construction of the building until the next meeting, because as you know, winter is upon us, and contractors are becoming insanely busy in this area. And I do have things lined up to work for me if I can move on it in a reasonable time period. So if the actual construction of the building is going to wait till December 10th, then certainly that's going to present a lot of problems.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say for myself, I don't really have a challenge sort of imagining what Andrew's described for the backyard in terms of the string lights and the kind of usage out there. My understanding too is that you said, Andrew, that you've been in touch with your neighbors and they've expressed support for this project. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Personally, for me, like I don't see a need for the public hearing in this case or the sort of added details. I don't know. I'm likely in the minority on this one, but I do think it's also a compelling point that we're going to be slowing this down, and likely, if I had to guess, getting very little input, if any.
Certainly, the backyard is also something that's open for negotiation in regards to if there are issues with it, they can be addressed separately from the actual construction of the building. I obviously would like it to be appealing and beautiful. I like things that are beautiful, and that's my intention is to make it that way. So.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, Steve, in that there's been no conversation about the structural part of the building. I haven't gathered from the board that there's any concern about the building itself.
Well, Betsy, I have concern about the fence with the movie, how they're going to do the movie. So when do we?
Well, that's outside.
Yeah, can I go see the outside?
So here's my thought, Teresa. With Wild, we did a phased approval, and we said that we would approve their interior work, or their building. We don't approve interior work. That's not our job, but we could approve the building so that they could get underway. And then we asked them to come back to us in December with a little bit more information that we could discuss about their outdoor space so that we could make sure that we fully understood that. We can certainly do that now. If you board feel that you're comfortable with the building part, but you want more information about the outdoor area. And that would in and of itself allow Andy to move forward with his construction plans, and we would still have the option to review the outdoor space.
I think it's a great idea.
I'm very comfortable with that. I just want the applicant to know that just to make sure that the applicant understands that there's no guarantee that the public will support the activity in the rear yard. And if the business model requires that outdoor seating or that outdoor activity, we have no way of knowing whether that's going to be approved or not until we've had the public hearing and have more information. And it seems to me that I think I would have no problem. Well, I'm echoing for some reason. I'd have no problem approving the building itself and the shed and the parking spaces along the alley, and then putting off till next month the discussion of the application for the activities in the rear garden. I just want the applicant to know that we have no idea what's going to happen in a month.
Well, so what I would suggest is that why don't we phase this project? And phase 2 will be the exterior portion. And we will hold a public hearing in December on the exterior elements of the project. So Andy, if there are people that have concerns, you can hear them and adjust your plans accordingly. I think that's part of one of the beauties of having public hearings is to make sure that everybody's comfortable and that people aren't coming back later saying, why, I didn't know you were going to do that. I didn't know you were going to put lights out there.
Well, just to make a small point, it was the Blue Anchor Youth Center originally. And there were two 30-foot telephone poles, one of them still in place, 30-foot telephone poles with two 1,000-watt or 2,000-watt sodium vapor lamps on each one.
So the kids
That
can
was
play
there for
basketball.
years, and I actually took it down.
Yay.
And so the impact level of lighting is sharply reduced from what was pre-existing when we purchased the property.
May I be the first to say thank you?
You're welcome.
And the Blue Anchor hasn't been there for what, 30 years, 40 years now?
I don't know. You probably know better than me.
I think, I think it's been probably easily that, Bagel Time has been
Started
there.
in 71, and I found an old picture in the wall that I guess the gentleman who founded it was a mayor at one time of Hudson, and his daughter comes in and eats in our restaurant a lot. And she saw the picture on our bar, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's my dad." and so anyway, but I think 71 is when it was built, or roughly around that time the building was constructed. So, and then
No,
it was Bagel Time.
It was before that. I graduated in 1965, and it was there then.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, so but the fact is,
I'm giving away my age. I shouldn't probably do that.
So Andy, the fact is, we are where we are now, and those lights haven't been used for a long time. Though I appreciate you took the poles down, but we still, I'm not going to repeat what Larry said, but what Larry said I think was very articulate and an important. So let's do this, guys.
All right.
The question.
So do I have?
Betsy, okay, we're not going to have a public hearing on this one. Explain to me why.
We're going to have a public hearing on the outdoor section.
Yeah, but why don't we have it for everything? No, why?
Well, very much the way we did Wild, Teresa.
Was that the
First of all,
first time we did
this
that?
is a site plan review, which does not require a public hearing, first of all. Conditional use permits require public hearings, period. Unless the board, for whatever reason, I might just eat my hat here, but I was told by our attorneys that site plan review does not need to go to a public hearing unless we have concerns about the neighbors. So it seems to me that there are probably no concerns about the restaurant space itself, in and of itself. We have some concerns. We want to hear from the neighbors about whether or not they have concerns about Andy's plans for the outdoor space in terms of the lighting and the fence.
Sound, projection.
And the projection. So my suggestion is that we go ahead and approve the site plans for the building itself. We have a public hearing on phase 2, which is the outdoor plan, and Andy and Tim will provide us with information on lighting, their intended position for where the movie would be projected on the fence, and any sort of, if there was going to be any other elements that we would need to know about, and let us know about how many people they anticipate would be out there at any given time, so that we can expect noise levels and things like that.
For movie or not for movie, for other events. And then you guys are going to send us the specs on the soundproof wall.
Movie is not a deal breaker.
Okay, yes, I
Just
understand.
so you know, I mean, if it turns out that some neighbor has an adverse thing, it's like, okay, fine, we won't do movies.
Okay.
It's just a nice idea that I thought of, and I thought it would be really fun to do.
I agree with you.
And it certainly wouldn't happen more than like a few times a year, and during the warm weather months on a nice night. So that's the only, implementation of a movie thought. I'm not going into the movie business.
I think I understand that. I just want to make a general point, and I know that we're talking to you, but I wish I was talking to the whole damn town. Our request for information is not an indication that we are opposed to you, right? What we're trying to do is help the public understand the project well enough so that when we approve something, they have an understanding of it, they have buy-in, and we have things in the town that works for the town, right? So
yes, fair enough.
I want the place to succeed. I have eaten at your restaurant. I've enjoyed it. I think I would actually enjoy sitting outside watching a movie and eating, pad thai. But we need to know more, right? And so I like this approach of splitting it up, and ideally next month goes really well.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So Andy, this would assuming that the board moves ahead and approves your site plan for the building, which we'll call phase 1. Then you can go ahead. I'll stamp the plans for that with a note that says that we have outdoor spaces yet to resolve, but that won't be holding up your construction plan.
And Betsy, can we put a little nuance on that? I would actually suggest that we actually give site plan approval for the restaurant building, the rear garden shed, the handicap parking and the other parking space, and the 6-foot fence. And it's the 15-foot fence and the use of the outdoor space that we are in phase 2 on.
Okay.
And that way, really, they can do the whole site layout and get it all going. And it's just that perimeter on the back side of the L that we wonder about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, go ahead, Larry, make that motion.
I move that we approve a site plan with the restaurant building, the shed, the parking spaces, and the 6-foot high fence.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Any more comments?
Could we just get rid of the map, the drawing that we can see?
Oh, yeah, Tim, you can take down the drawing.
Okay. Yep. Sorry.
Thank you.
Tim, just for your notes for the public hearing, if you could provide the sort of technical information on the sound fence, I think that would.
Yeah, I think he said he would do that, right, Tim?
Yes, I will.
Sound system, lighting, 15-foot fence, and the basic use of the outdoor space and occupancy out there.
Photographs of existing.
So hold on, we have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second. So everybody that says aye to approving Larry's motion, please do now.
Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay, you're good to go. I need to, for that phase. And now I need a motion for, to review phase 2 and set a public hearing for December to review the 15-foot fence, the use of the outdoor space, and occupancy, lighting, and the sound system.
So moved.
John, and do I have a second?
I second.
Lisa? Okay, excellent. Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, so I will take care of putting a public hearing notice in the paper. If you all will get everything to us 10 days before our December meeting for your outdoor. And I'm not sure which one of you, Tim, or which one of you is going to get me your site plans for the interior so I can stamp, sign, and we can get that done.
As far as getting a hard copy to you?
Yeah, Tim, I need 3 hard copies of everything, your application, as well as the
Submitted
plan.
all that. Craig has all that.
He has multiple copies?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So what I will do,
Betsy, do you need them to annotate them to split out the phase 2 work, or?
I will annotate that for
Okay.
Craig and for the world. And Tim, you will need a copy, Tim or Andy, one of you will need a copy. One will need to be delivered to City Hall, and then I will keep the 3rd copy for the planning board files.
If Craig doesn't have enough, I have a hard copy of their plans
Okay,
and the application.
okay.
Those 2.
But he should have plenty. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
we can give him 6 copies.
It does.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll get that taken care of in the next couple of days, and you're good to go with your building part, and we'll see you back here in December.
Okay, and you want me to, I can email this, the submission that we did for the drawings here that I showed you tonight.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
I'll email them to Elizabeth and you can.
You bet. Thank you. That would be great, Tim. Thanks very much.
Send them to you momentarily. Thank you.
All right.
Right.
Thanks,
Thank
Bill.
you.
All right, Andy, we're excited. This looks good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
The noodles.
All right. Oh, Mark, are you the most patient human being on the planet?
Maybe tonight I am.
Mark is easy.
Oh, boy. Okay, so our last big thing of the night is 7 Fairview Avenue, which is a site plan review from Neil, is it Pallone?
Alone, yes, that's correct.
Neil
Yep.
Pallone Architecture PLLC to revise an existing site plan. So this, they've already gotten approval on this. Located in the R2H district. It's a permitted use per 325-7B and 325-9B of the city code. So per Craig, this project was subject to a site plan review and approval by this board about right before I came on the board. So a couple
Years ago, yep.
So Craig believes that this constitutes an amendment to the original site plan, which arguably requires review by this board according to 325-35B. The only change here is to the use of the second floor. This is the old, remind me who used this building? I always want to say
American Legion.
The American Legion building, right?
Sorry, it's the American Legion building.
Yep.
And most of you know it. They, right at the top of Fairview. And there are no external changes being proposed. The project is definitely a type 2, so we don't have to do seeker. And after reviewing the changes that they've requested, I'm suggesting that we don't have a public hearing and we approve the change in keeping with all the conditions in place that already were approved for this. So there would be no change. Basically, they're taking space and making it an apartment rather than.
Right, so 3 years ago, the program for the whole building was for various art uses, gallery spaces and art classes and the like, and different lectures. And now through a variety of reasons, the owner would like to reduce the amount of space dedicated to the arts and convert the second floor to an apartment. So we're not modifying the exterior of the building at all, aside from, adding new siding and replacing windows and upgrading the existing exterior. But
and all of that was already approved.
Yeah, the building is not substantially changing.
It's the one apartment.
The apartment, the
It's
rest.
one apartment, yep. It'll be a 1-bedroom apartment. We've laid it out. It's just, we're trying to watch our budget.
Yeah.
So, it's just a kind of a simple transition from what used to be part of the public space and the art supporting space to a single apartment.
The owner to live?
Space, the art space, other than the new apartment, the rest of it is an art supporting space?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
The apartment is going to be for the owner to live, or is it going to be for rental? What's the use of it?
Yeah, it would be a market rate kind of apartment. Yeah, for rent.
How big? How big is the square footage on the apartment?
It's pretty big just because that's the existing size of the second floor. It's pretty close to 1,500 square feet.
1,500 feet, okay.
But, without modifying the perimeter of the building in a lot of ways, it really only accommodates a single bedroom and a studio space. So it would be perfect for somebody that's related to the art functions down below, but we're not asking to be, limited to that potential.
So board, I'll remind you that we really don't get involved too much with how interior spaces are used.
Just wanted to hear that arts supporting space.
I know you love that. That's warms all our hearts.
Yes, I say that sounds good.
Yeah, I do too. They're not changing the exterior of the building. They're not changing the footprint in any way. This project has been approved. They're really just taking a little gallery space and making it an apartment instead. That's
I'm a little confused about what building we're talking about. So
American Legion.
I know, but I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's if you go back.
I'm looking at the map now. It's the one. I mean, we have the documentation on the thing, so it's a little hard.
Yeah, go past the hospital, Larry. It just as you're driving toward Claverick, you go past the hospital, you take a left on Fairview. It's the very beginning of Fairview Avenue there.
Prospect and Fairview.
Left-hand side.
I can share a little aerial if you'd like to see it.
It's set back from the road.
Yeah, it sets way back off the road.
Okay, fine.
And there's a huge parking lot that's usually rented to, some of the spaces are rented to hospital staff. And
okay.
Yeah, it's been there for a long, long time. And I'm excited.
What's the question before us then?
Yeah,
I
what is
thought that because it's a site plan amendment, because they're changing a gallery space to an apartment space, that we should see it. I talked with our attorneys about it, and they're like, you really don't need, you don't just, there's definitely no public hearing required. Absolutely not. And so it's really just.
When I spoke to Craig, it was just a literal reading of the code that said when a program changes, it should go back to the planning board. So that's why he referred me to you. And,
Did you
there
have
was
to
a question whether or not that was even really necessary. So out of an abundance of caution on his part, which I appreciate, but also I don't think that we need to belabor this one. This is an easy
I
one.
just have a question. Did you have to go get a use change?
a use change? No, it's you mean?
Just asked.
I don't know what you mean exactly by a use change.
Commercial, because that was always a commercial building. It was never residential.
Right, so what will make the building comply for a residential use is largely driven by the building code, since the residential use is permitted by the zoning code in that zone.
Yeah, it's zoned appropriately for that, Teresa.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah. So I think we're good here, board, unless you have any concerns or questions. I think we can give this thumbs up.
We have to make a motion?
Yep, we do. So if someone wants to make a motion to approve this site plan as amended.
So moved, thumbs up.
Great, thank you, Teresa. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Mark, you're good to go.
Excellent.
I need to sign and stamp these plans, so you and I will make a plan to get together and do that.
Sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for your patience. I really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Sure thing. Good night, all.
All right. All right, we are almost at the end, board. So we need to review and approve some bills. Typically, we would have committee reports on IDA, HCDPA. I can tell you that there's nothing burning at HCDPA that we need to know about. John, I'm getting rid of stuff, and we can go back and do the bills.
The only thing that we had a meeting today, and basically there was discussion on the workforce development plan for places like 620 Union Street and those kinds of places, interfacing with Questar and Community College to train people to work in the hospitality business. So
great.
Yep. So that's in the works.
And I don't have anything new from HCDPA. It's just more of the same, nothing really to report. I was going to say, let's approve minutes from July, but I think we can dispense with that right now. We don't really need to spend the time.
How about training?
I'm getting there. Teresa put in a tremendous amount of time studying the LWRP and the seeker stuff, and she had a half an hour remaining on her training this year, and she would like that to count toward her training. I am 100% in favor of that, if all of you concur.
I'm in favor.
Yes.
I think that's a great idea.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, Teresa, you are done with your training. So Larry, I think you are the only one with outstanding training requirements now.
Yeah, I am.
I think I have a half hour needed also.
Read something. Everybody read something and we'll approve it. You got a half hour, we'll approve it.
Okay, I will do that.
Or we can all sit with Ryan over this CEQA.
You know what?
Does
For
that
doing
count?
this
Yeah.
homework, Betsy, that should
That's
count.
it. Yes.
Yes, this was several days worth of work for me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You have my hours, Larry and Steve.
I did read the LWRP as part of the preparation for questions 7 and 18.
So Stephen, we forgive you your half hour. Larry, how much time do you have left?
I think I have like 2 hours still.
Yeah, you better do one thing official. We'll give you half an hour, but
One thing,
All right.
do an hour and a half of something.
So
Okay,
does
I will.
everybody approve Stephen?
We'll approve Steve and Teresa.
Yeah.
So I'll let Tracy know. So
Betsy, I think I have an hour, you said.
Oh, well, okay.
I'm gonna
She's been on the
sit
phone
with
with me
Ryan.
about this thing for more than an hour.
I know.
Be alone.
But
I'm
I'll
just
be sitting
trying-
with Ryan.
I'm trying to balance two things, guys. No, understand it. These are state requirements and I can't waive them. But I appreciate that you're all working incredibly hard. So we'll let it go. So we do have some business, 620 Union Street, which is the hotel. It's a long story, but they're going to come back to us with a site plan revision. So I want Victoria on this because we didn't have her before, and I just want to make sure that this is really buttoned up. So what I would like to do is I would like to pass a resolution to establish escrow at $1,500. So we get a couple of her hours of work on this just to make sure everything is cool.
So moved.
And so I have a resolution to that effect ready to go. And I would also, what they're going to be doing, just super briefly, is they were originally going to dig a basement and reinforce the basement under the original building as well. So new basement under the new wing, reinforce and reconfigure the basement under the old original part of the house. That ended up, that's 5,000 plus square feet. And it's so expensive that they would like to revise their site plan, not have to dig that massive basement, and move some of the things that were going to be in that basement up. For instance, the supply closets, things like that. They want to put them on the floors rather than in the basement. There's a break room. They're reconfiguring the space, which, if you can recall the site plan, if you're looking at it, we're standing, pretend, in the building facing Union Street. They would like to extend their footprint on the new part of the building about 18 feet toward Union Street and the new wing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so they're taking what was this wide and they want to make it that wide, front to back. So that does require a site plan change. And so what I'm going to suggest is they bring those drawings back to us. They get everything to us and to the public 10 days in advance of our December meeting. We can have a public hearing on it if you think that's required, because it is a conditional use permit. So I think it is required. Let's do that in December. Nothing significant is going to change. I asked him about the gardens. Were they going to significantly change? The answer was no. They're literally just adding 18 feet to the building so that they can accommodate these spaces that were originally going to be in the basement.
But they're taking 18 feet away from the garden to do that? I mean, right?
Kind of sounds that way.
Yes, that's exactly what they're doing, but they're not harming any of those trees. None of that is going to change. The garden will winnow down by 18 feet on that L part of the building. Not in front of the original McKinstry Mansion, but in front of the new part of the hotel. So I'd like us to look at that information from them. I'd like us to set a public hearing in December. I just don't want to belabor this too much by having us review it in December and set a public hearing for January. And I think we can move it along. It's just not that significant a change, but I think I'd want to give the public the opportunity and you guys the opportunity to weigh in on it once we see the plans.
Okay.
Sound good? I haven't even seen the plans yet. The plans are in development, but I had a long talk with their engineer and with David Kessler, the applicant. And I think this is probably a good way to move it along and get what we need. So with your okay, that's two resolutions, one to set a public hearing in December and one to set escrow at $1,500 for the project. So do I have a motion for escrow?
Well, so I mean, I won't do it now because it's so damn late, but I do have a comment about the resolution that you sent to us. But it involves, and I sent this to everybody. I don't know if you read my email. It involves,
Huh? I read it.
Okay, the resolution that we had agreed to, let me just read this. So the resolution for 620 Union Street references the planning board's escrow procedure adopted in October 2020. Unless I'm mistaken, the resolution that was adopted in October 2020 states that if the planning board desires to retain the services of an attorney, it will only retain an attorney designated or approved by the City of Hudson Corporation Council.
Right.
This is now I'm commenting. I feel that this is in conflict with City Code 325-29. As Betsy emailed to us on October 20th, we should consider amending number 5 of the planning board escrow procedure. And I truly feel that this is important, not just for us, but for future planning boards. The reason being that we truly do not have to hire a city attorney. You know, yes, it might have to be approved by the planning boards, by the City of Hudson Corporation Council, but it's misleading. The resolution that we signed, that we agreed to in October, is misleading. It does not have to be a city attorney. So Betsy had written to us back then, after we had already agreed to the resolution, that we need to consider amending the attached resolution passed at our last meeting. It is in conflict with City Code 325-29, which states that the planning and zoning boards may hire a planner, engineer, attorney, including without limitations, city attorneys. And so number 5 could simply just say something, instead of saying what it says now, number 5 can say something to the effect of, as allowed, that the planning board desires to retain the services of an attorney as per City Code 325-29, and leave out the rest of it. And so I'm suggesting that we amend that resolution and therefore also amend the current resolution that we're talking about.
And I get legal advice on that, just definitive legal advice on that before we do that, Laura?
Yes. From who? I mean,
from Victoria is where I would start, because it's this, well, actually, no, it would have to be Cheryl.
Start with Victoria. Start with me.
So I agree with you completely on this, because I think it is in conflict with our code. But there is something about burdening the city. The mayor is the only person that can technically hire people.
I'm not saying that they don't go through that process. They can go through whatever process they want. I don't disagree. I mean, we could, we don't want to hire Giuliani to,
do anything.
Our attorney. The person has to have land use experience, and it should be, the person can be approved by Cheryl, the mayor, whomever. I think they would have a hard time not approving someone who is, well-versed in land use. It's just that what Jeff wrote in that resolution that we agreed to in October is against our code.
It restrains us, yes. So
it's literally against the code. And when all of us are gone into our, dotage,
I'm not going.
We've just strapped the next board with thinking that they have to hire one of the already hired city attorneys. It's not right.
Can I say something? Betsy, if we're gonna pay for that attorney from the, are we paying for that attorney from the escrow account? We are, right?
Yes.
So how would that burden the city?
It's a matter of the mayor. This is where it gets really complicated, and this is why I want to make sure we're not making a mistake. And I also don't want to light a fire when we don't need to, if this can be resolved. So I just want to make sure that I understand how we might be encumbering the city or what exactly the mayor needs to approve. I don't know that answer. I can read in the code what it says, and it seems like it's in direct conflict to me. But I want to make sure that we're not stepping on Kamal's toes in any way.
All I'm saying is that I listen, I agree, even if it's not already there, that the mayor and the city attorney should have to approve an attorney that's hired for a specific purpose. All I'm saying is that what this indicates is that we have to hire an already hired city attorney, and that's not what 325-29 says. And from what I understand, it's not what it means. That's all. I'm not going to take away their authority.
No.
You know, I'm just saying that we can suggest an attorney that, you know, and I think if we were going to do that, we would suggest an attorney that, you know, that is well versed in the field that we're seeking.
So how do we want to resolve this tonight?
I don't know, because these people, we need we need them to do an escrow.
And I'm not concerned at all. I wouldn't consider using anyone but Victoria on this one, frankly. So
Well, I think that's fine, but I don't want it to end up that, we approved this one, and now, you know, we just set a precedent. When really, I feel we should amend the resolution of October. That's my point.
Okay.
So Rebecca, if you don't mind, if you would just make sure that this kind of stuff is in the minutes, and so that it's clear that this has been brought up and discussed. And then I guess I wouldn't mind going ahead and approving the, you know, the resolution we have in front of us.
Okay. What do the rest of you think?
I'm fine with that.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. So there are two motions we need. One is this the resolution that Laura was just referring to that I sent to all of you. So I need a motion and a second on that one, please.
So moved.
John. And a second?
I second.
Thank you, Teresa. Everyone in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I will get to the applicant and tell him about this escrow requirement. And the second is to set a public hearing for this project at our December meeting. Do I have a motion for that? Laura, thank you. Second? Clark, thanks a lot. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okey doke. Thank you all.
One thing, that application, that will they show us what they're going to do with the now excess, the new 18 feet that they have behind the building?
Oh.
They're making it bigger. They're elongating the building. They're not.
Yeah,
moving.
they're not moving it. They're making it wider.
I see.
Things that used to happen in the basement are now moving above ground, and so they need more volume.
Extra space. Okay, sorry, I didn't understand that. Okay.
But they should show us what garden they're taking away that we already approved, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, they know that.
Okay.
I already mentioned that.
Okay.
As a matter of information only, I want you all to know that Verizon has moved the shot clock. They've extended it at the moment until February 9th, 2021.
Oh, okay.
All right. And the last thing is some bills that have come in. Hang on, let me get to that file.
Pay them.
Thank you, Teresa. Hang on, I just have to open these files up. Here we go. One is for Mike Musso. And it is for work done to date, professional services from 9/28/20 to 10/24/20, $3,449. He went through the breakdown of how many hours and at what rate their environmental scientist and their project manager worked on it. There's also personal mileage included for when he came up for our site plan. So if we agree to pay the 3,449, we have $4,551 left in escrow for that project.
Betsy, does he know, is he gonna get us the areas of coverage and get us as close as possible to the percentages? Does he know that?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you asked me.
In other words, I had asked for the areas in which the Verizon is covering.
Okay, we can't talk about the application right now because it's a public hearing. We can only talk about this bill because Verizon's not on our agenda for discussion tonight. Okay, and that's a public hearing matter. So do I have your approval to pay this bill?
I just have one thing to say. So the original escrow account was $8,000. It's replenishable, and he's supposed to tell us when he's hitting every $2,000 increments.
And he has been.
Yeah, he has been. So I just wanted to put that out there. That so far it seems like things are going as he told us he would do.
Yeah, he's been very responsive. I have to say, he's been a delight to work with.
Can he give us a discount?
No, we've already approved this one, baby.
Such a deal.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. And then Rodenhouse Shale sent two bills that they've withdrawn one. They withdrew some money they charged us for 620 Union. So that changes the amount. They withdrew $52.50 off their bill. I was just, if anyone wants to take on the bill part of this job, I would be so happy because I hate this.
Clark's good at that.
Who is?
Clark.
Project manager.
Yeah.
Shut my video up so no one knows I'm here.
We vote for Clark.
Really, I would really love it if someone would take this part off my hands. I feel like
I'll do it. I'll happily do it.
Oh, Clark, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So Polidoro, Rodenhouse Shale and Polidoro, they have submitted a bill for $178.50, which now is reduced by $58.50 for 620 Union Street, 735 Columbia Street. That was our brewery project, $882. 75 North 7th Street, escrow, $367.50. The Verizon application, $588, and the Colorusso Hall Road and Dock Review, $3,328.50. So this ends up being $5,344.50 minus the bit that they pulled back, the 50, whatever I said it was, $58 or whatever.
What was the first amount? 700 and something?
$178.50 for the Union Street, but they've reduced that bill now.
$1,700.
Then there was $882 for 735 Columbia, $367.50 for 75 North 7th, $588 for 119 Columbia Street, which is Verizon. And all of these are escrow, by the way. And the Colorusso Hall Road and Dock Review, $3,328.50. May I have approval?
Well, I have a question about these bills. So I'm sorry, we all need to go home, but
We are home.
I know, you know what I mean.
I need dinner. I'm getting cranky.
There you go.
Go ahead.
Okay, Clark, maybe we'll look at them carefully because it seems like, what besides the hearings, what do they really have to do? I mean, do they review the site plans and what?
Oh, yeah. So here's, give me one and I'll read you. Give me one and I'll read it to you.
Oh, but you email it all to him?
I'll mail it all to Clark, but I would love to get these paid.
Yes, okay, fine. I move that we approve the bills.
I mean, I've gone over them, I promise
Okay,
you. It's
okay.
pending public hearings, it's drafting resolutions, it's calls with me, it's calls with you guys about all the seeker stuff. It's
Interpreting rules, laws, regulations.
Fine.
It's called I get paid for everything.
That's right. They get paid for every time they even think about us, they get paid.
Right.
So do you want us to move? Do we need to vote on this?
Yes,
Yeah.
I move that we pay the bills.
Yes, please move to pay the bills.
Larry moved to pay the bills. I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, bills get paid. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Yes, I make a motion to
Done.
adjourn.
And who's the second that motion?
I was waiting for that.
Who's seconding?
Second.
Larry, thank you. All in favor, say aye and goodbye.
Aye and goodbye.
Aye and goodbye.
And Rebecca, you've done a good job. Hope we didn't beat you up too much.
Rebecca's still up.
My
Good.
notes are pretty thorough.
Rebecca Roden said, "This is really exciting. Is it always like this?"
Always the same, actually.
Yeah, I just want to say, 4 hours. Wow, you all really do it. It's
Yeah.
Wait till we
Yeah.
fight.
Okay.
You weren't here for this till 11 or a little after 11 for a couple of meetings.
I'm not doing that anymore.